just for a brief second, we were in the old setup. I was like, whoa, why do we look so weird? Sup, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Johnny today. No silver. We're doing the Best Gaming Podcast number 496. We're going to talk about PlayStation 5 Pro, Death Stranding, Shadow Dropping, Sega delisting games, a little bit of Veilguard, some updates on Metaphor. Let's see. Actually, there was some other news. There were a couple companies that split from other companies today. I think somebody bought themselves out of Sega's reach just this morning. I think it was Amplitude Studios. They ended up separating from Sega. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with companies. We had a huge discussion about it last night for hours. It's
Nintendo backwards compatibility announcement.
Nintendo backwards compatibility announcement. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch to talk about. I'm just looking at some of the other news article stuff that we have. It's been a busy week. That's sort of why that thumbnail, for anybody wondering why the thumbnail, does that thumbnail mean somebody's dying? It does not. It means that there's been a lot of anarchy, and yet at the same time, I thought it was a perfect flatline thumbnail because it's like, it's a lot of anarchy, but people's reaction to it is like right here. Like a lot of times when we're talking about stuff, I mean, you get the shit about politics and stuff that might go high or Veilguard, but it's like overall, there's this weird tentativeness. Like when we talk, especially when I talk to people in chats and stuff like that. Wizard of Smoke says, Carrick, where do you shop for hoodies? Knocking it out 2 weeks in a row. So most of the time they're my own design that I use off of Teespring, so you can get those off Teespring. This one is, I can be honest, I can't remember where this one's from. The beanie is mine. That's from Teespring, I think. We sell these, but this particular hoodie I think is just a random one, actually. Yeah, just a random one. I'll have to check, man. I'll get back to you. I'll ding you up if I find out where it is. Usually I end up just finding ones that randomly appeal to me. But there's a reason why I'm glad that I'm this tall, because the bottom part of this hoodie, not friendly for families.
Oh, damn, really?
Yeah, well, it's not unfriendly, but
okay,
it'll put a small child through puberty instantly. I'll just say that. Like they would be a small child and instantly be a young man. Yeah, it would be a fast track. It'd be a fast track. Yeah, it would definitely be a fast track. Speaking of fast track, and let's begin this right now. What did you play this last week? We'll talk about some of the big ones that you want to talk about in a little bit for your big updates. But was there anything new, anything that you've jumped into that you enjoyed this week?
Nothing too new. We already talked about Dragon Age. I've been playing that. I've been playing Metaphor. I'm like 60 hours in. We talked a little bit about it in chat yesterday, but I thought it would be interesting to revisit it real quick to kind of give an update, like how the game holds up 60 hours in. It's always interesting to see. Outside of that, I've also been dabbling a bit in the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, which looks very pretty. I thought it was interesting to pick up on our conversation from, what was the value proposition of doing a remaster and stuff like that. I had some thoughts there. But yeah, overall, that's been it, really. Just enjoying those.
I've been doing some Veilguard, but a lot of it has been Call of Duty with the guys and girls in the two different Discords. One Discord I do with pals that need some help with admin, and then my own. Jumping in, playing Call of Duty, man, hanging out with everybody and having a really good time. And I gotta say, this is one of the only Call of Duties, Johnny, that I can feel that when I look at the Call of Duty, when I look at all the Call of Duties, there's one or two that rise up and the rest are fun. That's sort of how I've always felt about Call of Duties. But this one, other than zombies being a little wishy-washy and really low map numbers and stuff, so it's not driving my desire to play it. I'm really happy with this Call of Duty, man. Really, really happy. And that's been fun. This is the longest I played a Call of Duty since World at War. Or maybe Infinite, even though Infinite was more the campaign and messing around there versus, let's say, multiplayer. And here it's been multiplayer.
Have they
private
added
matches.
anything or like changed anything, patched anything
for this current what we're at right now? So yeah, so we like to test. We get everybody in a big chat, and then we dive in and we do bots on the hardest level so that a person can learn the map before going into multiplayer. That's like something that I used to do since Unreal 1999. And I don't know what happened, dude, but we were playing, everything was fine. and we had it pretty set up. And we went in after a patch, and they had patched those bots. And now they're drop shotting, they're leaping, they're sliding, they're hiding, they're camping out. It has been, I mean, we noticed, and it was instant. We hadn't played it for a day. We pop in, we're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, they're completely different in the way they play, and it's been fantastic. It's been hilarious because you can get like so it's like a horde mode almost. So you get like 3 or 4 people on one team. You crank the other team with insanely high level, and then you just go out and try to see how to play the game, where the levels it are. And Jay, myself, a bunch of different people have then gone on multiplayer and been like, holy crap, I play way better now, because you have that moment to sort of identify what's going on. So yeah, it has been absolutely a blast to do that, and a big surprise. Spec Ops, $50 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. He says, just wanted to support, long week, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much, sir. And it has been a long week, but I do know you got the Legion, so at least you got the ability to play some portable games in your downtime. Portable sort of exploding. We've got some portable news coming up too. But yeah, I definitely appreciate it, Spec. Thank you very much, sir. Hope you're having an excellent week, and hope you have a good weekend.
What's the current status on the Legion? Do you recommend it currently for the price?
Okay, so I was not aware the price had dropped again on multiple devices. I would say overall, if you're looking at them, those prices are fine now. I'm still not a big fan of those prices, just because I understand how much that is. But damn thing plays everything. So, and it's finally a handheld that feels good. Like feels it feels big enough for my hands, where almost nothing else has felt right. There's something about the Legion that in particular feels right. But you've got a lot of good handhelds out there, for all the way down, like low end stuff to high end stuff. Windows, not Windows. The nice thing about Windows is any Windows device handheld, if I have a hacked INI file on a PC version of the game, I literally just run the same thing on the Legion. And there's something that's so magical about being like, oh, I can. There's none of this Android shit, no Proton shit. It's like, it's just
and you
works.
can have any launcher, right?
Yeah, you can have anything.
Whatever. You could do Game Pass, which is cool.
Yeah, you can do all of the stuff. I do GeForce Now, Game Pass and stuff. So yeah. So handheld's doing well, man. Also, talk a little bit about the PS5 Pro. Actually, we can jump into that now. So you were saying something like the PS5 Pro unboxings might be the least exciting unboxings ever, right? Like, I have been blown away by, it's like, today we're gonna unbox the PlayStation 5 Pro. Like, I don't know. What did you see? What did you see from all this?
That much money, it's incredible how unexciting every single unboxing was. I watched like 3 or 4 this week. Digital Foundry did one, and it was hilarious, because as they pull this thing out, they even know exactly what's going to be in the box, what the box color is going to be like, like down to the accessories. They just know exactly, because it's exactly like the PS5, except for the stripes. Yeah, I mean, overall, they seem to like the build, the people with hands-on and stuff, which is nice. But yeah, it's just so unremarkable, isn't it, for the price?
Well, and what's funny is, what's great about this is, you look at it and there are a couple really odd idiosyncrasies, but for its price, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is improve something somewhere, right? Just like a video card. You get a video card that maybe is faster, but doesn't have the best size for a texture VRAM or something like that. So you may have issues there. That's sort of the PS5 Pro. But what I've noticed is, apathy. Like, it's so interesting to see, and it's apathy about everything. It's not just the PS5 Pro. I want to make sure it's not even against the PS5 Pro in any way. It's actually really, to me, sort of a confirmation of what I had already been noticing, which was that new stuff is getting there. Whether it's oversaturated, or whether people are just really tired, or people are happy playing their old games. It could be great stuff, good stuff, bad stuff. Who knows? There's no reason to get into why, because nobody will know why. But I noticed that too. I know it's sort of like this, no surprises maybe might be it a little bit, because I was watching Digital Foundry. I haven't got a chance to DM John. I probably should have prior to this, but They were like, oh yeah, it does this. It's like really surprising. He was very happy it improved pixel style games, because he was worried that on pixel style games, that upscaling and kind of stuff might ruin the look that he, as a classic gamer, likes. And he's like, no, he actually did a good job. But then they're like, Elden Ring still doesn't run right, and you're all, what the hell,
Yeah.
It's such an odd situation. And then I saw earlier this morning, it is everywhere. Something we knew about. This is typical Sony. They always do this. They always needle out the sales to make it appear like everybody wants it. We've seen it. I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn. We've seen it with every single device they've done. And that's what happened here. And now everybody's got it. And so scalpers are selling at a loss, which I do find funny, because you can get it at every store now. You can get it at every place you want to buy it.
Hard to feel bad about scalpers.
Yeah, hard to feel bad towards a scalper, right? Same controllers, maybe that's a bit of it. I mean, you would want the same controllers, but I would say it would be nice if they had better batteries, just
or something. I think it's very, very hard to put your finger on why exactly you would upgrade to this one. Even looking at the breakdowns, I did watch some of them where they compare games, how they run here and there.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, the takeaway is it's not that noticeable, and it's certainly not one like binary thing that you can point to, like it can do this.
Yeah, it's definitely not binary. I get your point there. Yeah, that is true. I hadn't thought about that.
Turn on a certain thing. It's hard to.
Yeah.
Because like they were saying, well, Metaphor doesn't run very well on the PS5, but runs at 60 locked in PS5 Pro. And to be honest with you, I think the layperson will be hard pressed to find those issues with Metaphor on PS5. Like, does it drop sometimes? Yes. But honestly, if you play on a TV, right, unless you're like up against a monitor, it's pretty hard to notice any issues. And then that becomes really hard to justify going to a Pro for a big premium for a difference like that. Or even when you look at other games that already look incredible, like Last of Us 2 or Horizon.
I think the big thing, straight up, and this is just my opinion, I think GTA 6 is where you see this explode. GTA 6 is at a level that is it's not even a game in the game sense of games. We've seen that. We've looked at it. They're at 250 or 230 million. Where it's beyond, it's at a thing that it just doesn't even make sense. We know people who bought other systems, multiple systems, to play GTA when it came out on theirs, or if they needed to upgrade it. There's something that GTA is that no other game is. GTA 6, when it launches, resolution being pretty important, especially in a game like that with mixed environments. It's not a game that is controlled environments. It's going to be people's legs, bodies, clothing, buildings, Everglades, alligator. You get my drift. It's going to be everything. So resolution is going to be something people are going to notice quite quickly. And I can see that. Ignoring the FPS, if it can run at 60, which most people are saying, like, no, it can't run it. It won't be able to run at 60. We don't know that.
We talk about a system seller for a game. And now the bar is higher because the system is so expensive that a system seller has to be, a complete banger. But I think if there's any game, that's the game that will sell.
It is. It's beyond, dude. It's like, I think I don't think we need to explain. Like, everybody knows that whatever's going on with that game it's not even. It's an event in and of itself, and you could say it's close enough. I mean, it's legitimately close enough to be. It's like a platform release.
Dude, it's the most like mainstream. It's the junction between gamers who play all types of games, between people who only play COD, between people who only play
That's good point.
FIFA.
Good point.
They make an exception to go in and play GTA.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
so I can see definitely that being a big deal when it comes out, and it's a smart move on their part unless it gets delayed, and then you could see a situation where you're like, uh-oh. I also, you got to wonder, are they going to, because it is available, and pros have never sold insanely well in numbers, Do they drop the price a little bit when GTA comes out? Do they do something like that, since they'll be the console with the highest spec
Yeah.
by
Bundles,
a good
certainly.
deal? Yeah,
All this type of stuff.
And
Yeah.
Rockstar doesn't like to do that anymore. Doesn't seem to be that kind of company anymore, but who knows?
Do you think special editions maybe? Because people love their special editions.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't track
custom
special
plate.
editions very much, so I don't know how many third-party special editions there are for Sony. Like, did they, they probably
That's
did an
true.
Assassin's Creed, but I know they
don't
did
either.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Fully anecdotal.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think the power of that system is good for what we are now, but I think that it's definitely, when you look at it and you start to see it, especially as I've been playing the Pro, because I did get one, ended up getting mine early, which was actually pretty nice. Bought it myself. Yes, I did. You definitely notice that, like, oh, it's something that on some games is almost unnoticeable. And then on other games, you're like, oh, that's noticeable. But the big problem is, the one thing that everybody's going to have to get used to, man, at some point, every person needs to come to grips with the distance from their fucking TV and what TV they're using. And I think Pro and Xbox Series XXL, or whatever they call it, and the PlayStation 6 is where that's going to be. It's going to pop up now, where it's like, if you want, like the 8K, no one cares. That's ridiculous. That's sort of like a masturbatory thing. That's great. It's fun to show that you can do it, but it's less than like 0.05% of all people have 8K. It's not a thing. But the 4K, where you sit, how far away you sit, what game you're playing, all that kind of stuff is popping up. And that's where I think, especially at $700, it's like, it's really, I mean, you're talking to a completely different group of people. Like, it really is in all honesty, you could consider the Pro a video card buy. That's what the Pro feels like, because it doesn't improve other things. It's like, it only improves these very particular visual things for the most part, especially because of how the CPU problems exist on both of these consoles. So it's like,
and I think it's
like
at
a video
the level,
card purchase.
It's at the level where if you don't have a really good TV or something to plug into, a good monitor, it becomes pretty difficult to justify, because now you're going to have, it's almost going to be, the bottleneck is now going to be your TV, because like now you're pumping more into this thing than what you can display.
Yeah, and Xbox is going to have the same problem with this. So is PlayStation 6. They're both going to have the same problem with this if they don't have a game that does a lot of effects. You and I've talked about this. Effects, and Abzy brought it up as well, that effects and art design are going to matter more as we get into the higher resolution sets. They're going to be what matters, is what, the lighting effects on screen, the fog, the art design, the things that you can see regardless if you're using a 27-inch screen, which, by the way, I would say for the majority of the people in my Discord, 32 to 27 is still what they're using. And that is a FPS screen, you could call it. That's more about your Counter-Strike. That's more, that's a screen that you're not usually able to parse and go 8K. But that would, if there is even one that is 8K, 20, it wouldn't make sense. Like, so there's this gulf that's happening. And this was happening even when I was selling TVs daily, let alone now where, I go in like once every two weeks or something. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this goes. And the same pops up for PC in that way. We've already had these discussions where somebody says, I'm not going to get a 4090, I'll just get a 4070. That's pretty much where we are now, except that the upgrade price is a full $700 more, which most of the time in video cards, it's the same thing, but you look at it and you're like, okay, I know what I'll get. And you're upgrading from something that is a gen back or 2 gens back. Here we're upgrading in this weird pseudo same gen, which makes it
a thing
weird.
Like an upgrade path where you're able to bring your console into a shop and they give you like a significant rebate?
Yeah, Fighting Cowboy said he had some trade-ins. I saw his tweet and he said something like with trade-ins it was $370 or $350 or something like that. But I'm sure he traded a lot in, because trade-ins don't get you shit. They just don't. Those guys are there to, they need that grift of the bottom line. So they're like, here's $1.50 for this game that we're going to sell for $600 or $60 new or what have you. I don't know that that's obviously hyperbole, but it's, I mean, we're going to be seeing more of this because Switch 2. So moving from PS5 for a second, Switch 2, Nintendo basically was doing financials and said that future software or future hardware is going to be completely 100% compatible with past hardware. So we can now say, all right, you have the Nintendo Switch at what it's delivering now, and you have the Switch 2. They did not say it will improve old games. And I think I think people should be aware that there is a difference there. Is that they simply said it is backwards compatible, meaning it will boot up and run the game at minimum as if it was original Switch hardware. I would love to see improvements, but we have seen times where companies have just done emulators that are just basically running a generic
exactly the same
frame blurt of what's going on.
Yeah, we would hope not, of course.
Dude,
that is probably the worst form
8 years,
of
man.
backwards compatibility. Is if you can't actually run natively the games and you have to emulate them.
Yeah. So, but we'll have to see, man. I think weirdly enough, like the big interest, like PS5 to PS5 Pro is much less noticeable than Nintendo Switch to Nintendo Switch 2. That's going to be 8 years of technology.
Yeah.
To even if it was a couple years old, which usually what happens, they decide their stuff, that all gets taped out, wafers, fabs, all that stuff, it begins production. I was just laughing looking at the Switch Originals hardware and where it is, and it is literally a Casio keyboard now. Like it is, or calculator, so ancient. So the idea of getting a new one and what it can do, and the idea that maybe they're hitting 1080p and then they upscale on the output to a 4K. They use an upscaler to that, because you don't need to use too much of an upscaler internally. See, that's the other thing I'm wondering about. Like, how much upscaling will we see on current games that are new? I mean, we'll see some from some companies. But the big thing, dude, so many third parties are excited about this. That's all I'm hearing from people, is that all the third parties are like 3 different platforms will be releasable. Like, they want at least 3. You have those 3 for consoles. Then you've got your PC. You've got your handhelds, you've got VR for some people, but that's exciting, man.
Yeah, because right now it must be a pain to adapt your game for Switch. You have to cut everywhere.
It's got to be rough. It's got to be rough to even think about putting it on the Switch. I mean, they have some streaming games on purpose.
They have like the Harry Potter game in there. Hogwarts is in.
Yeah, and
they
made a couple Switches, but it runs, right? And Witcher
runs.
3 runs. You could say, I would say Witcher 3 on Switch boots up. But yeah, man, I mean, it's cool to see this. I'm excited to see what all of these can offer, and then companies can start recouping. And I'm big, small, large, doesn't matter what company I'm talking about. They can start looking and saying, great, we have another platform for a day one. We can recoup a little bit of the initial development fee, and we can make a little bit more risk, or we can be a little less worried about just having one primary, one secondary console, now to be 3. And that's exciting, man. That is really exciting. Here's what I wish would happen. And I'm just going to say, here's my prophecy. That the day that thing's released, you have a lot of huge third-party companies day and date instantly with that thing going launched. So like let's say
dropping.
Yeah. Well, imagine, and this is, I know that a lot of people are mad at this company right now, but imagine something like Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla day one for the Switch 2, where you can play them handheld. We can play them I can play them handheld. I already have a handheld. But if a Switch 2 pops up and you have these games that were just really not necessarily super possible on the Switch 1 that have been sitting around, and a lot of companies looking and saying, we would love to release it there.
Yeah.
Ignore Ubisoft for a second. Whatever company you want to go to, there are a ton of games that just can't be done or haven't been done on that system that I would love to see. I would love to see day one, man. I would love for Switch to be like, we're releasing June 1st or whatever. And almost like the old days where you had 4 or 5 big companies saying day one, this will be announced. This will be
where
available.
The norm becomes that it's not released on all 3.
Yeah, it'd be great. Let's see, looking here. Gaming with Passion says, I watched ACG play. He plays like someone that has SWAT training. Oh, no, that's just communication, man. But thank you. Ken Shiro says, do you guys think they will lower the price on the PS5 Pro at any point? I do. Yeah, they're for sure going to lower it at some point in the future. But I don't know if they will lower it prior to it, us seeing it come out, GTA 6 come out. I would love to see that happen. What's up, Craig? Let's see. Vapor Blood said, I sold a bunch of games once, and in the receipt afterwards, it had shown that they gave me 1 penny for Fallout 4 Game of the Year. Wow. And he calls it Game of the Year addiction. I don't know if that was on purpose, but that is a brutally honest, explainer for a lot of people's belief of what Fallout 4 is like, because the world may not love it, but a lot of people I know who are big into Fallout, man, like Fallout's an addiction for them. I think it was Rogerio that was saying he's like, he needs an intervention for New Vegas, I think he said. Craig says, I had a similar experience. I know, just sell on eBay and buy there quite a bit too. Yeah, eBay, that kind of stuff is always probably your best bet for getting a return. Robert says, at this point of the current generation, I'm waiting for the next console iteration. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Stormlord says, Chapter 5 of the Black Myth Wukong, absolutely amazing looking game, but some days I'm just off my game, and therefore it's a lot of dying. Yeah,
I did not like Chapter 5. I stopped playing. Right
Chapter 5,
at the end of Chapter 5. It was the one with a ton of spiders and like enemies with weird hitboxes where it feels like you're swinging your bat at nothing points.
And
like a lot of, going into caves and bugs everywhere.
I just asked everybody what their hardest level or area in a game is for them of all time, like a place they remember going into. I didn't have near as much of an issue there as I did in about the second or 3/4 of my way through the desert area in Black Myth. The Aztec warrior looking guys with the shields.
They were tough.
Dude, I don't know what was going on with my timing, but I would see those guys and audibly groan. I'd be like, oh.
You're just like off tempo. Or something.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's almost like when you get a really good fighter and another fighter, and like a TJ Dillashaw or something who had very off tempo, very outside the box striking, where he would strike from way over here on purpose because most people don't go, what happens when I block down here? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's difficult, man. Yeah, I had a hard time there. Black Myth definitely has some hard areas. I still think that probably one of the Dark Souls is probably up there for me. One of the Dark Souls. Somewhere there's probably a Dark Souls area that I'm like, oh, that was the toughest, or one of the toughest areas. Or Space Harrier level 18. Actually, scratch it.
Yeah.
Space Harrier level 18 on the Sega Master System. Definitely the hardest. I forgot. Yeah. That and Strider when they flipped the level upside down.
They were ruthless.
Yeah, Amud says Sekiro, all of it.
Yeah, Sekiro.
Ratchet and... sorry, I apologize. Continue. What were you saying?
No, it was rough. It had some big difficulty spikes.
Do you know who screwed me over in Sekiro, dude? The fucking bull. Didn't a bull have like a log in its... It was a bull. It was after the general, I think, and there was a bull with something like long. I think it was a log. It's been a long time.
Stuff.
I don't know what it was, but I was just like,
well, it's hard to read because it's not.
It's an animal,
humanoid swinging something.
Yeah, you can't see a bull go like this. I mean, you could, but I mean, Black Myth Wukong, you can definitely see some animals that strike like normal people. But dude, that was rough, man. That was rough. Speaking of that, a little side note just for a second before we jump back into the scary shit. I was looking at Bloodborne, trying to figure out, chances of a Bloodborne 2 and stuff. And in the past couple discussions we've had, I had reversed who made the game and who didn't. And technically, Bluepoint helped Japan Studios. Japan Studios is the ones who basically primarily made it, and they're out of business. They're gone.
Ooh.
And so that's why, at least another reason why, I, for some reason, the entire time it had them flipped. I think that's just because Bluepoint had done the remake of Dark Souls. What was it called? Demon Souls? I think.
So who knows? Maybe some of the stuff is even lost at this point.
It was when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that makes even more sense because it already sort of made sense to me. It's like they have multiple different ideas that they might want to do, and we know it's in Sony's hands, and maybe that makes even more sense when From Software says it's in Sony's hands, not ours, and you're like, Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it was there. It was that studio, which I'd reversed it. Sometimes you get helper studios. Ubisoft has a lot of helper studios, and after 5 years of talking about a game, you can mix up who's the main and who's the main and who's the helper. Kenshiro says Sekiro kicked my ass real. Robert Cochran says getting through original Halo, the library on Legendary. Oh yeah, the library on Legendary was rough. Hermit J says I recently completed Midnight Suns, underrated, and tried to get a perfect 3 stars in every mission. Some of those took a long time. Yeah, that you got a lot of heart doing that. I want to say congratulations for wanting to play that game.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the book club segments.
Fumo, 14 Czar super chat. Hey ACG, how do you handle work stress?
Do you have work stress?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, recently it's you and I talked about some of the issues that are not YouTube particular related, but I would say just hobbies outside of gaming, or hobbies and doing stuff outside of gaming are incredibly important for like work stress, and a good sense of not give a fuckness is super, super important. And I've had people, even there's one person I know who just doesn't like me. They're like a smaller YouTuber, and they're always bitching. Anything I post, they're always like. But one day we were all talking about like what we care about in games, and I was like, well, you know what? This is just a review. It's not cancer that we're talking about. It's like if you disagree, that's fine. It's a review for a game. It really doesn't, in the end result, doesn't matter too much. And sometimes I get people who like just take this shit way more serious than I think it needs to be, and then the discussion can't get past that. And there's been times where you're like, we can sit and be passionate about something and then move on, and some people can't move on. And that can be stressful, yeah. It can be stressful, just the tech stuff, you and I. Oh, Neil says, as a kid, Pandemonium was hard. Pandemonium is such a fantastic game, and anybody who likes old classic games, you should try Pandemonium. Kel says, last mission in Battle of Lithian in MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries was pretty tough. I finally cleared it with a very lucky death from above after being disarmed. Oh, dude, that's good. Ransom in-game of Hollow Knight. I just laughed and was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. I love that idea. Rogerio says, Ishin, the cheat saint. Best Sekiro with my eyes closed on NES. Yeah, okay, Jay. Or he says beat Sekiro with his eyes closed. Yeah. That's Jay for you. Jay with the bragging. I'm just joking. He actually barely ever brags.
Yeah. The final boss in the Elden Ring DLC was
rough.
Brutal.
Didn't do the Elden Ring DLC.
It was bordering on like bad design, because the second phase had some stuff that was almost impossible to read visually, and you had to almost just learn it by feel completely, because like,
oh damn,
you can't parse if it's gonna hit you or not. You just have to know and try. Almost like, that movie we talk about sometimes, The Edge of Tomorrow, where like Tom Cruise.
Oh, right. It's not skill, it's repetitiveness.
Yeah, it's repetitiveness. So you know exactly like, okay, if I roll 1 second into this phase, it will work.
Right.
And you can't even see what's happening. You just have to like brute force it.
Yeah.
But hey.
Hey, you got through it. JK says, I remember Pandemonium, never got past the first world. Pandemonium, just so people know, was when there were 2D games and somewhat 3D games. 3D games were very rare at the time, or much more rare, and Pandemonium mixes them. So if you wanted to climb a castle in Pandemonium, you would start to move to the right and the world would twist like Fez. And it's actually not done very much even now, because most of the time they have you behind the camera. And this would have the world rotate. And it was a jester and a woman who, they got transported to a fairy tale land of some kind. I can't even remember how it all occurred, but yeah, just a fantastic game.
It makes no sense when you describe it like that, but it's like a dream.
My description of the tech, or my description?
No, of what was going on.
Okay, I just want to make sure my description of the tech was, what's going on? Yeah, I have no clue. There was a book. They got sucked into a book, maybe. There was a bad guy, and there was a jester and a girl. And I don't even remember
why.
My
dreams work out.
That's like, exactly a dream.
They make sense in the moment, and then later.
So guys, I had a dream about a jester, a woman, a book, a bad guy, and world twisting. You're like, checks out. Checks out. That makes total sense. Doc Brewski says Gunstar Heroes had some rough levels. Junior7247 says I'm on the last boss of Elden Ring DLC and I'm struggling horde. Tembo says Consort Radon is the hardest Souls boss, but also the least fun to fight. Oh, yeah. That sucks.
Bleed is your friend. That's all I would say. Look into having some good bleed.
Kenshiro says something I can agree with. The weird hologram game Time Traveler that was in arcades back in the day. Would love to meet someone who beat that someday. I did beat that. Not a brag. I just outspent it because it cost a lot of money to play because it was it almost looked like a wok that you would cook in, and it did a hologram in the center, and it was a cowboy that you were playing. You had to go through all these events, and it was really poorly timed because it was all playing basically video. It wasn't a game. It was like you make a move. It was like the old Laserdisc games, and it was hard as balls. It was like Dragon's Lair back in the day for arcades, where it was just a Laserdisc that would seek different locations, but it looked like you were playing. And then have this little section where it'd flash, and if you hit your button at that time, it'd go to the success part of the video, and if you failed, it would go to the death part of the video. And Dragon's Lair was 50 cents back when games were 25, and I remember going in with like $20 and leaving. Didn't beat it.
Damn, dude, that's brutal.
Yeah, and when you're a kid, $20, with inflation, you're probably spending $60 on in one night on a game, and you're like, what? Finally, I just stopped playing it and ended up playing it on the PC, I think, when it came out. PC, or maybe Xbox 3, or sorry, maybe Sega Genesis CD had that because they had Time Gal. Some of the others. Neo 2 was tough for me. Yeah, Robert, I agree with you. Neo 2 kicked my butt. Junior7247 says which bleed weapon would be best with a great shield? Do you know, Johnny?
There are several. There's a big bonk bleed stick, and probably if you search just that on Google, you'll find it. That's
big
what
bonk
I used.
Bleed stick. Search that.
Yeah, I forgot the technical name, but that's.
By the way, do not search that. I just realized what those words sound like. Please put plus Dark Souls on your search after that search. Yeah,
definitely, Elden Ring, just to make sure.
Yeah, because that is going to get you some gnarly videos. Do not do that. What's up, Sleeve? How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for joining in on the podcast. I appreciate it. We're going to have a pretty big guest next week. 90% sure, but they're a busy person, but they are somebody that I've told Johnny about it. Funny guy. Watch most everything that they do, hoping to get them on here. I think bigger than us. Well, maybe not YouTube, but definitely on like social media. But going to be exciting. So I appreciate everybody showing up for just Podunk, me and Johnny. Just little Johnny, little tiny itsy bitsy baby Johnny, tiny baby Carrick showing up to do a podcast. Everybody watching us grow up. How long you been doing the podcast?
I was thinking about it the other day, and I moved to this house in 2018, and we at that point we had been doing it for maybe almost a year. So
at least 6, 7.
At least 6 years. Yeah, at least 6, 7
People have been able to see you age 6 years. That's pretty crazy. Well, you don't age, so you're pretty lucky in that way. You're in those.
Already got rid of my hair before I started, luckily. So there are no images of me with like.
True, but you're in those years where a person will age 10 years but not age physically, the time when when all the body's DNA is like we'll fix that. Don't worry, Johnny. Every day you wake up, the DNA sends you like an email and says, "Don't worry, Johnny, we got it taken care of." And then pretty soon those DNA are going to start ghosting you, and you're not going to get an email. And then it'll be a week, and you're not going to. And then pretty soon the age catches up.
What's your secret for not getting like white hairs? You still got.
Well, I get white hairs occasionally, but I pluck them. I'll pull them out. I think in all honesty, I pretty much look my age for a certain time frame there. I was like you, where like you go 10 years where you don't really age. But it's like when you get to a certain point, I would say the big thing is sleep, which I don't get. So I'm sure I look older than I would if I got good sleep. Good sleep is like the. I mean, you and I laugh about this because you'll hear like that one guy who I always tell you sounds like a Bond villain who shows up and he's like, well, technically, if you get less than 8 hours of sleep, you would die instantly. And you're just like, okay, come on. But I do think sleep is so restorative, like just insanely restorative for things. And then not smoking is a big one for me. Like no wrinkles. I'm lucky for that. Smoking is the big one. Linda Hamilton's a great example of this. Terminator 2, and then she's Grandma Smurf in like the next movie, and you're all,
damn,
that's just
what
age.
happened?
But it's age plus smoking. Smoking is such a big, it's
and probably genetics too, like especially for the hair thing.
Some genetics, but really cool white research papers on twins, one who smokes, one who doesn't.
Oh,
when you see, dude, when you see their faces, 46. Rough. The estimate that I saw was 37, 49, 36, 57.
Damn.
So there was almost 20 years of age added on when somebody smoked in the estimate of somebody's age when they saw him. Isn't that nuts?
Wow,
dude. I mean, you are just sitting there, just with all that smoke boiling up over your face. Carrick, you're lucky you have no whites in your beard. No, I do. I just pull them. I'm 34 and have half my beard is already white. Oh, dude. Well, if it's right here, you just consider yourself a cyberpunk character. And just, dude, I see a lot of people who look like they are doing cyberpunk stuff, which is fine. But I mean, almost going towards the cyberpunk we saw, you already see people with green hair streaks. But I've seen some guys with like white streaks, and I'm like, is that it? Yeah. Don't forget drinking. You'll get a beer head. Now, I don't know what a beer head is. I'm assuming you just mean puffy, but that's funny. That's a beer head. I've never heard it that way. just all swollen up. Speaking of swollen, the Xbox library has swollen up by one single game, Johnny. That's Death Stranding.
Your
Instant
favorite
shadow dropped
game ever produced.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Fantastic. Yeah.
It is. I've never been this excited for a game release in my life. And the fact that this shadow drop, I think overall has basically really probably put Xbox on top just by having that game. Even though it's late.
We saw at least one whole person playing.
We saw at least one whole person playing Death Stranding.
Yeah, for sure.
All jokes aside, what is that? 5 years? 4 years? 4 or 5 years for Death Stranding?
Yeah, like I would say 4 years. Sounds about right.
I mean, it you know, whether a little inside baseball, but it's like if you look pretty closely at what Kojima's been doing, and you look pretty closely at what happened here recently, which was a shadow drop of a game that we all know Xbox would have loved to have said.
About 5 years, by the way.
Xbox would have loved to have said was coming out. Yeah. It feels to me, and I've already stated this, that it certainly feels to me like, especially when he ended up getting the IP for Death Stranding on the same day, or it was all announced on the same day, that what this also indicates is a chance that most of his games, if not all, I know Death Stranding 2, maybe there's some issues there, but will not be exclusive anymore. There won't be, like, if it makes sense that he got the IP, he's in control of it. And we're seeing that happen from a lot of companies now, where they're trying to get out on as many devices. The old days, you have head of Epic stating very clearly that the exclusives that they got didn't pay. Sony's talking about the exclusives they got didn't pay, and we saw the leaks. Microsoft, same thing. They just want their games on everything. And people who aren't prepared for that and who are slightly older and like are really entrenched in that kind of thought process probably have a pretty big upcoming couple years to make some pretty serious adjustments.
Yeah, I think it's the future. Even Sony, right, is given into that. Sure, they have a delay of like a year or two. But...
yeah, it was crazy. And yeah, somebody just mentioned this. I don't know if you saw it. It was $20. It was on sale instantly for $20.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if I was in charge of it, and he is now. If I was him, I would be like, Xbox sell for $20 because you can just get this giant, legion of people playing it and see also who's interested and who's not. It is an older game, so it makes sense to sell it for cheaper. I like the idea. I don't know who's playing it. I don't know how we'll find out. I'm sure somebody will track the sales of it and stuff like that. It is really cool. Shadow drops do not work for sales most of the time, though, which is what's bothersome. Shadow drops are for fans. They're rarely really for anybody else. It's like, I think skipping the PR cycle of people being interested and getting the built-up excitement hurts them in the end run. But I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for people to be able to play it who have Xbox. As somebody who's played it, I'm excited for them.
Yeah, especially Kojima. He can put together an event because he has such a big following that if he shows up, like turning on an Xbox, or something like that. People, without even saying anything, people will be like, "Whoa, does that mean?"
Yeah, it's a great
just
idea.
Create a bit of hubbub.
And we'll have to see. Also, I think this would also indicate, I mean, unless we all pretend science isn't a thing and life isn't a thing, shadow dropping, coming out instantly ready on the Xbox with no PR probably indicates it's been done for a while. So that's something that I think we will hear more about in a year or maybe even a couple months, but it doesn't just all magically happen on the same day. It's like there's definitely been some plans in place, and so who knows if the exclusivity window shut, and it's like now we get the IP and everything just shuttles, but it's obviously been done. It does have one big bug though. For people who use resume mode, it won't save correctly, and there's some people on Twitter who explain the exact steps, but case in point, resume mode and Death Stranding don't seem to love one another right now. Soul Sleeper, ACG, what would you need for DS2 to get you interested in the sequel? Just for it to come out, man. Just because I didn't like DS1 means absolutely nothing. Doom Reaper says, I thought I heard Kojima bought the rights back. Exactly. That's what we said. Yeah, he got the rights back. Which is going to be cool to see exactly what that means and fits back to what we said at the starting, which is that it really does feel like we will start seeing his games be fully on everything. I mean, that's what we would want in this future where there's, maybe some risk. Maybe the risk is getting larger. Got to put it on everything, man.
What do you think could change from him having the rights? Because he was already making the second game. So that's not changing, but just maybe where they release it or more control over what the game is, maybe?
Listen, man, those systems are close. I mean, the port time between those is way closer than PS3 and Xbox, like back in the day, or anything like that, or even one of those in the Switch. The idea that they can get two up and running and have a full platform. People like to pretend that because the Xbox sales are half of what of PS5, that it means it's zero. But any developer you talk to is like
30 million or something.
Yeah, they're like, wait, what are you talking about? It's millions upon millions of people. Like, that makes no sense. To gamers who are trying to prove a point or who want to, like, stand on a pedestal, that makes sense. But when you look from a business standpoint, that's why Nintendo Switch 2 will matter, because it will be another platform to sell to. So I think all it does for a person like him or anybody is to look and say, man, thank you. Like, we have another place where we can get some sales on this. And hopefully, grab some more fans. I just don't know. I don't need Death Stranding 2 to do anything different, because I'll play Death Stranding 2. I just wasn't a fan of 1. 2 may hit me at the right time. It may hit me at this exact perfect moment.
Did you like the gameplay stuff with where it's a little bit like Snow Runner, a little bit where, like, from A to B?
You mean Zen?
Type, a little Zen, a little exploratory.
I like my Zen less interrupted by
introspection,
like really bullshit cutscenes, though. So, like,
no, I agree. I also didn't like the cutscenes that much.
So a Zen game to me, Zen is not watching two people bloviate. Like, that's not Zen. That's why nobody should be listening to this podcast to Zen, because it's just two people blathering. Like, that's not Zen to me. Zen to me is the gameplay experience, me engaged in the game doing a particular thing that is somewhat methodical. But the moments of
introspection where, like, you were out on the mountaintop and
it was way too interrupted by cutscenes. Like, and they were
punctuated by everything.
It just wasn't. It was just boring. But that's the thing. A Zen game for one person. Let's say two people love Zen games. I've seen it where somebody plays a Zen game, somebody plays this Zen game over here, and they are quite similar games, but for whatever reason, those two people don't align. I would say for Zen, it's pretty personal. A meditative game for a person is pretty personal. Just like a grind game is pretty personal. One person's like Diablo 4. One person's like Path of Exile. And you're like, well,
Monster Hunter.
They're sort of
whatever.
They're sort of, and those two people will fight you to the end of the earth and say, no, they're not. There's no, we know there's some connection, but for whatever reason, those two don't meet. Something about a Zen gamer in particular, it's got to hit perfect for them with this atmosphere of, like, comfort, exploration, and familiarity that pops up. Because Zen doesn't necessarily mean exploration either. I think a lot of people
Not
probably put the
necessarily.
two
Yeah.
together. It's a
I
part of it.
liked the introspection in some of those
Mhm.
moments. That part really worked for me, and it's why I like the game. The cutscenes, I would agree with you. There's something about the Kojima style cutscene. It has a quality that it never registers with me. Like the actual content and substance of
Mhm.
what's being said. I don't know if
Right.
it just has this poetic way of saying stuff. I can never really register what's taking place, actually.
In the
It's
cutscene.
almost like, yeah, I will watch a cutscene and I will understand every word in it, but it won't like make sense to me. Still, when I think back to it, it's all like a big sort of poem where nothing truly makes sense. I
That's
feel
a
the same way about the Metal Gear games,
yeah.
where all the plot was just like a big blur in my head.
Yeah. Uh I think of it the same way as I think some people like Tarantino as a director, some people don't. Um just because of the way they do dialogue, or Aaron Sorkin,
Yeah,
and they don't like this. That's sort of the way it is. I think it's a huge deal with pacing. It's a huge deal with how his pacing is so.
a bit slower, maybe.
It's not just slower. It's that he almost revels in blather and just a ton of stuff randomly being said,
Mm.
and maybe causing your brain to be alight and go, "Oh my god, there's so many unique things going on," and that sometimes works for me and sometimes doesn't, and it just didn't here. That's all. I've seen it
Yeah.
work in other games. I would say Metal Gear. I liked Phantom Pain a lot. I really enjoyed that one. Where I've found that a lot of Metal Gear fans who like Metal Gear actually find that to be one of the least enjoyable for them. So there's a possibility that that one meets me a little closer than it meets them. I don't know. And that's a very small subset of people I've talked to. I've never done a poll on it, and I
Yeah.
really like that game. I really liked that game. Where I've not really liked any Metal Gear prior too much. I haven't disliked them. I was just like, play them and move on, or
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah. I think I'm in the minority, but I love the movie aesthetic cutscenes Kojima has in most of his games. Mostly because what the characters are saying, doing are utter nonsense. I played 2 hours of Death Stranding. I think like 10 minutes were actual gameplay. Matt says Power Wash Simulator Zen. Power Wash is an amazing game. If anybody gets a chance, Power Simulator.
Yep.
Cash says, Carrick, as someone who has had the game in their backlog, could you give me a brief explanation of why you love Death Stranding so much? Sure. I haven't had to continue playing it and never will. It's great. It's great. The more you can remove from your supposed fake backlog that companies have done their best to make you feel like is a thing. Dude, if there's anything in this world I would love to kill, is this fake backlog shit.
List of games.
It's so created by like companies and people trying to get you to like buy stuff to hold on to it later. It's ruinous. But yeah, man, so Kojima got the IP. It's out on Xbox, $20, pretty much no negatives there. So you can jump in if you want. It's a great deal.
Yeah.
It's not on Game Pass. Don't know if it ever will be. I think $20 is a great price. Even though I don't like it, I have no issue saying,
yeah,
if you want to jump into it, I think $20 is just absolutely great. Moving on from there. So Sega's delisting a shit ton of their digital games. Did you see this?
No, you were telling me about it. So when you say delisting,
they're going to remove them from stores, digital stores. Okay. You'll still be able to download them if you own them. Yeah, this is from Polygon. Sega's delisting tons of classic games, and I'm going to talk about why this is important. Over 60 games will be delisted from Steam, where games from Sega's Classics range are unavailable to buy both individually and as Sega Classics. Titles impacted include Echo the Dolphin, Jet Set Radio, Treasure's immortal action games like Gunstar Heroes, Toe Jam and Earl, Space Channel 5 Part 2. Sega pointed out that the catalog of classic Sega Genesis games, including in Nintendo Switch Online and expansion packs, will remain available to play. So last night in our discussion, I believe I said they would not be when we were talking, or I hadn't found out if they were, but they will be. It also seems Sega Age's series of high-quality Nintendo Switch releases developed by port specialist M2 is unaffected. But basically, another 11 games, all Xbox 360 versions of classic titles, which are available to play via backwards compatibility, will be removed, including Crazy Taxi, Sega Bass Fishing, Shinobi, and Sonic Team's Saturn-era platformer Nights into Dreams. So, dude, that is not a small decision. That's pretty huge. They're going to leave them up for people to download if they own. That is absolutely a sign of a couple different possibilities. One, a bunch of reboots where Sega's saw the future. By the way, Sega and Nintendo, I know it sounds weird because they used to be rivals, but they're pretty much hand in hand now. Sega is hand in hand with Nintendo, which is just weird to say. But a Nintendo Switch coming out, and Sega leaving those games on there, that all makes sense. Does it mean reboots? Does it mean that they're moving those to like GeForce Now or something? They're moving all those titles because they are removing sales. I mean, I don't know how much money they were making, but they are removing sales from future, versions of these games.
That's what I was going to ask. Why would they delist? Because they're just closing it off to make money, right? Can it be like an IP thing where maybe they don't have the licensing
for a couple, but not this many. This is ridiculous. In fact, I believe it was Crazy Taxi that they lost and had to fight to get the IP for the music back so they could put it back on the stores. So they fought to get a game back on the stores that they are now taking off the stores. So there's something going on there business-wise, whether that be, I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of things you can see them doing, including, somebody was saying a new remaster package, which I don't see that happening as much because all those were available and selling and all of that work had been done. But JC says, are we getting a new Game Gear too? It's like, I mean, no, I hope not. It seems to me like that would be a mistake on their part, but it's an interesting situation, man. There's a lot of these companies making some high level, massive changes in gaming. Like that's massive. To remove all those from digital stores. It's a lot of games, 60 games. I'm not saying they were making tons of money, but
I would imagine it's unlikely they're all being remade, right? Because
it's very unlikely they are all being remade for sure. Very unlikely.
Yeah,
very unlikely. But you rarely see a company remove the ability to make money.
Yeah.
Right? Like
right.
And currently where we sit in many places, that is quite literally what's happening. So there's a definitely investigation that needs to take place into why Sega's making these. Sega also, Amplitude Studios bought themselves out of Sega as of today. I believe they're the Endless Space guys, the RTS guys.
Okay.
They moved. Sega announced that Creative Assembly for Total War has had really good sales, is doing better, has recovered well, strong DLC sales. But it just seems to me like some of these companies are making some changes and advances for something that's happening. Could it be Switch too? I don't know.
Well, it got my attention because I like Everspace. Well, Everspace 2 especially.
So I apologize. Endless Space, different game. So your Everspace is the flying game. Endless Space, those games are they're like a turn-based space or turn-based land-based game.
Okay.
Less so your kind of style, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
But yeah, really interesting to see what some of these companies are doing, and Sega making those moves. I mean, whenever anybody does anything where you look at a game and you're like, okay, they did this because they were losing money or they want to make more money, you look at Sega's choice, which is huge. It's obviously one of those two, or they have a plan in the future.
Do you ever see them coming into the console market, making a comeback? Like a big Sega console at some point?
I would say no.
Must be hard, right, to enter the market too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I would say no, but we are seeing these really small Chinese, like knockoff kind of really small.
For the portable ones?
For the portable ones that like run a bunch of different smaller things. I could see Sega, let's say they call it the classic, or they call it like, they do something with with Sega's overarching history, and then all those games are on this handheld. Maybe, but I don't know, man.
A nostalgia.
That's like a lot of steps to take. Like that's right. That's like, we're going to remove these. We're going to do this. We're going to put them all. It's
Well,
do
it's
you
also a
really
lot
think
of
you're going to
added
sell enough
cost
handhelds?
because, like you said, the games are already there and playable,
Yeah.
right, on Steam for the most
Yeah.
part. So, like,
Yeah.
now you're adding all the cost for a production chain for
Why not
a
leave them up
console.
until the release of your new hardware is close, and then
Right.
remove them? Even though we all consider that a bad form, we've certainly seen it. We've definitely seen bad form before. But you
Yeah.
see those kind of things, you're like, huh, that's interesting. I don't quite know exactly why they're doing it. But yeah, so anyway, Sega delisting a bunch of titles coming up, and really no exact reasoning for it. I'll continue to look into it, but I'm not quite sure if we'll ever find
It's
a
interesting
specific
that they
reason.
don't need to explain. Well, because I'm assuming they don't have like shareholders, do they? They're their own.
No, they're
They don't
traded.
need to like give explanation.
They're
Oh, they
traded.
are.
Yeah.
I would assume they need to give some explanation, right, to them at least. Like, hey, we're just
Well,
delisting a
if they
bunch.
didn't hear recently, then maybe in 3 months, we'll
Yeah.
get some.
Because those sometimes.
Sorry, I have a migraine. We'll get some. Yeah, we'll get an idea maybe. But
No
I don't
worries.
know.
Cheers, but I was also having a migraine, so I also popped a good old pill before the
Yep.
podcast.
Yep. Sometimes you got to pop some absolute crank. Just joking, people. But yeah. I mean, we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where the change was so big that I think it caught a bunch of people by surprise. Nobody really knows why exactly they're doing it, but it's an interesting course of action, I think. Also, did you hear the stuff about Warner Brothers? They were saying that CEO, this is sort of a bit of news. Warner Brothers CEO name-checked Batman as part of its new game Video Focus. The company plans to double down on just 4 titles or groups of titles: Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones.
Oh, wow.
And DC in particular,
I always
Batman.
forget that Warner Bros. Owns Game of Thrones as an IP, right?
Is it possible
right?
you forget because it doesn't fucking matter? I mean, Game of Thrones games have a success rate of 0.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. So which one? So we had the old RPG, which was a disaster largely.
And we had the Telltale ones, which were not good.
Not good.
Was there an RTS?
Featured. I don't believe so. I think the Telltale even featured Tyrion a little bit, but it was mostly super like spin-off side.
There's a wizard on the moon. Yeah, just him reading a line board. I don't know, man. It's very, I mean, that's a weird mix of games from them, but it also might indicate we won't see an Injustice, unfortunately, though they did say DC included, but focusing in particular on Batman. I think everybody knows what that means, which is that they're going to try to figure out a way to start getting back into the particular Batman games that everybody's liked for so long. You and I have joked about this. Companies have get out of jail free cards, and it feels like, dude, I've been saying this for months, but it feels like since the Embracer pullout, they saw something. It's like the Saudi group who was buying it saw something coming that was bad. Like, looked at financials, like, and they pulled out, and now we're seeing look at every huge change, Johnny. Huge, massive changes in the last year that companies for the longest time have sort of ignored or been, felt we'll fight through or whatever. And now you're seeing like Warner Brothers go, yeah, we're doing that. Ubisoft breaks the glass and makes a Japanese game that people have been wanting for what? 10, 12 years, probably longer. Like, a lot of these things are just break glass if in case of emergency kind of stuff. But I mean, I feel like they should have been doing Batman this entire time.
I think Batman is a no-brainer. It just works. People like Batman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there was exactly, and they had a good formula, and they were always, even Arkham Knight sold well, and it was sort of a technical disaster for a lot of people up front. But it feels like, for whatever reason, I'm glad these changes are happening, but they just stopped. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Stopped. Yeah. There's something about it where it feels like they just stopped, and then they just didn't look, and now they woke up and read their email, and we're like, oh, this is where we are, Lord of the Rings had some good PS2 games. Okay, there we go. Still no Superman. Yeah, Superman would be tough as shit to do a Superman game. Doom says, hire Larian to make a Game of Thrones RPG. Ugh. No, thank you. No, thank you on both of those. I wouldn't want Larian doing it, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, dude, or a Game of Thrones RPG, the main people are already in the show. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to be a podunk dude who gets killed all the time. They've already shown in the show that everybody can die. Like, why? So weird.
You say that, and I agree with you. But I think there is a certain contingent that would love to just see the same story rehashed.
No shit.
Just like we see in Dragon Ball games, man. They have the same.
God damn, you're right, dude. No, you're
rehashed, and it works. It sells.
Okay.
I think so.
But wouldn't it feels like an RPG where like you already know what's happening? It would be like the epitome of something that removes the player's ability to have some agency. But you are right.
They did exactly that. Right. Like, for example, with the Kakarot game, the Dragon Ball Kakarot, it was literally rehashing but you were going through it in an RPG game.
Okay.
It didn't do super hot, to be fair, Kakarot, right. But they keep making those games, man.
And there's probably something to be said a little bit that an anime fan is prepared for that more so than a normal game fan or a Game of Thrones fan. But yeah, I don't know, man. Just the idea of like, and then here's the other problem, Johnny, is then you got to look at the voice actors and you got to be like, we're not paying all these guys to do the voice acting, right, for this. We're not going to jump in here and pay all these people.
Getting the band back together.
Can you imagine how expensive
to do a project? Impossible. Because the prices, like, if their price was already high, after that,
right?
Imagine like what you have to pay to get in Jason Momoa and friggin' like all the.
And so then you switch to not getting them, which then pisses off fans a lot of times.
Yeah. You could go towards what they did. Was it Square Enix that did the Avengers?
Yeah.
Where they got like, bootleg.
Yeah, bootleg actors to do it.
Yeah. Like, it's a tough one. How do you get a bootleg Downey Jr., man? It's rough.
Soulskeeper, $12 super chat. What's up? Gents, dialing out to test my PS5 Pro, Final Fantasy Rebirth, or Dragon's Dogma 2 to take its virginity. Cheers. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy. Pop that digital cherry. Have a good time. Hey, he brought it up. I gotta greet fire with fire.
I guess you are inserting a disc if you happen to have the.
If you bought the
external,
it's a Pro. Only professionals make you pay for everything. They're the Fiverr of consoles right now, where they say it's a certain price, and then you're like, okay, and then you go and look, and it's like plus,
less hardware with the Pro than like with the normal.
The Fiverr of consoles.
I'm still not over it, man.
Yeah. But yeah, hope you have a good time and enjoy that.
To answer the question though, Rebirth seems to be really awesome in the Pro. Definitely would recommend that. Because it looks like you can play in the quality mode, and it looks a lot better. And runs pretty smoothly.
It's going to sound really weird because that's great.
But
can you imagine like the idea of replaying that just because the graphics are better? Like it feels like there's a niche who would even experience that as a thing other than to go, that does look better. And then you have the argument where you had a lot of people saying it looked amazing day one. And you're like, okay, well. No.
Yeah, that's not an easy game to replay because you already put so many hours if you did play it, right? So many side things and tough one.
I heard Dragon's Dogma still has a ton of issues. That
goddamn town is still probably
that town, the town and the ladder you guys told me about. Yeah, but it's just one of those things. Terrence says AAA games cost more and more. How many copies do companies need to sell to recoup costs? 5 to 10 million. 1 million sales used to be a great sales number. 1 million sales used to be a great sales number, but you would be stunned to realize that even more than a decade ago, one was not, especially for many of the bigger games or games that unfortunately just got delayed over time. And depending on the price, right? Because some price does matter. I don't know what it takes for AAA because a lot of people pretend that all AAAs cost 100 million or above, and they don't. AAA mostly do, but there are still some AAA games that I consider AAA that are not incredibly expensive. They very smart, accurate budget predictions and stuff can make them. So certainly less so than ever before, but I don't know how many sales because there's other ways there. It's a big range, and it's like it's hard to know what they're expecting. You have the Square Enixes who think that every game needs to sell 200 billion copies, and they seem stunned to the point of like not understanding numbers when a game that they barely ever talk about and gets released that it doesn't sell. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's an expensive industry even for small companies. I think Souls said earlier got the disk drive and stand. Good for you, Souls, whoever that is. Was that the person who had was that
Soul Sleeper?
Yeah, Soul Sleeper. Okay, so he got the disc. So you're good to go. Insert that disc. Enjoy yourself. That is so weird that you have to buy the disc, man.
Yeah.
I don't even fight for the disc in a system. I just find that the more expensive the system, the more it should have everything, not less.
Or at least the same.
Or at least the same. Yeah.
It's again like the Switch without the clicks. You know, remember the
oh
one
my
that
god, yeah, the Switch
without
the Joy-Cons, without click, and even though it was in some of their commercials. Let's see. I hope Sega makes hardware again. That would be crazy. That would be crazy.
It'd be cool
I would like to
shake it up. Yeah.
Let's see. Blanket tariffs in talks is gonna bring the price of gaming up. Not gonna be fun. Yeah, tariffs and stuff like that always affect all this stuff, but also companies will move and adjust to figure out the cheapest way to make games, and it's probably not going to be in the West. You know, that's just the way it is.
They will go to 10 different countries before going to the West, like.
Absolutely, yeah. Or they'll figure out ways to, you know, like there'll be all kinds of stuff. Remote work definitely can be cheaper if you have people working in other nations and stuff like that. But have a little headquarters of like 6 people in San Francisco, so you look like you're a West Coast, right, company, but then remote work everybody. Like you were telling me, your company is actually worldwide, so it's like that. It's like, oh yeah, we're based out of San Francisco.
Of people in the U.S.
Yeah. You got like 90% in Australia or something working remotely, and you can definitely do that kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting to see how all this works out for prices. I'm not too worried about the tariffs, not because I don't believe they're coming, but because I need to see what is occurring before getting worried or reactionary towards them. But shit like that's coming for sure. Also, the head of GTA Take-Two, the boss, stated recently in a discussion, GTA 6 on Xbox Series S, I'm not really worried. And went on to talk about how basically they know the hardware prior to deciding where to put the game. And so they look at the estimates of power and the ability and what they can deliver on any system. And I would agree with this because a lot of people don't even remember that GTA 5 was on the Xbox 360 and shit, you know, and looked pretty good. Sure, though, there will be compromises made, but there will be compromises made for the consoles versus the PC as well. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I just found it funny that there were people arguing with him in the comments, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm like, we are at peak gaming now.
He's
yeah. But he said he's not really worried. Somebody was saying, well, he could have just said, I'm absolutely 100% confident. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. He could have said that. And maybe they're pretty. And
I guess
pretty
we never know how true it is.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, but you know, I was hearing the other day the argument once again that games are being gimped by the Series S, in the sense that games are being like less graphically impressive because they need to also work on the S. I don't know if we've talked about this, but isn't the fact that that's just like another version? Sure, it's maybe more resources because people need to crank out a different separate version for the S, but they still have the full fat version for Series X and PS5. It's not like those versions are made worse because Series S exists, right?
Microsoft has a particular clause that says that really Xbox Series S and X have to be parity in all options, which is what drove the problem with Baldur's Gate. But when you look at game development, one of the things that does pop up, and this has happened, by the way, since the Sega Saturn, because I still remember this conversation coming up with the Sega Saturn all the time. And whenever people say, you know, games as a whole are being held back by something, you only need to look so far as the PC. And if there was a magical holding back, the PC versions would be doing things that are unheard of on console because there wouldn't be a held back, and they're not. There, you would see some kind of magical thing on PC that you're like, this is impossible on. There's no such thing occurring anywhere else. Look at this thing. I can't even tell you what the thing is because we've never seen an example of the thing that supposedly one particular system holds back. But it does hold back if there's a parity requirement on one system
features,
and another, then it will. Yeah, it does hold stuff back. Texture qualities and stuff like that. We're starting to see developers doing a really good job with, repacking and packing different systems and making it so that like one system has, less detailed texture, stuff we've seen for years on PCs.
Presets, all this stuff.
And then we've had developers on here who are like, in no way, shape, or form does it make any difference. And then we've had developers on Twitter. I haven't had any on here, but we don't do a lot of developers. It's just when we do have one, we usually ask them around those questions. Then you have others who are like, it absolutely makes a difference, but it seems to be much less. But it's like I think that means the truth is it has made a difference at least once. And that's the end truth. It has held something back at least once, and we know for a fact that Baldur's Gate's one of them. And here's one of the big problems. There's been other couple of games that have done this, but Baldur's Gate's the big one because Baldur's Gate is highly successful. If this game was Carrick's Cucumber Selling Simulator, no one would give a fuck.
What a banger.
Yeah, what a banger. But if I said, man, the Xbox Series S is holding back Carrick's Cucumber Sales Simulator, no one would give a shit. It's because it's one of the biggest games ever. And what they wanted was co-op across the game world, which was not possible. The Series S was having issues with it. So, you get it. You get it all over the place, man. It's definitely a situation where you also have such a different architecture in the Series S than you do the X and the PlayStation 5 because its RAM setup is completely different. And weirdly enough, Johnny, if you actually look at what they've got that thing doing, I've been highly impressed by developers getting it to do stuff that I didn't expect. Like when I do see a game on the X and PS5 and then I see it even running on the S, I'm like, oh, damn, But that's also because I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. We got Doom playing on LEDs on keyboards. I think if we got people who can figure that out, they can figure out how to, get most of this stuff running on others. But yeah, it's a good question. It's a good thought process. I don't think anybody will ever do that again. Or if they do, they won't change the hardware. I think that the big thing that I think the big problem with this one in particular is that they changed the RAM. It wasn't just slower or smaller. It's that the entire setup for it was different. And I think that causes a lot of confusion from a developer going, man, that's a dramatically different. It's basically its own platform now.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk a little bit about Metaphor. You're 60 plus hours for Metaphor.
Yeah. So it's funny because usually it's, you with the 60 hours in a game, and I have the 4-hour version where maybe I'm in the honeymoon phase and you're already like the seasoned veteran, with, scars on your face and everything. So I thought it would be interesting in this one. You played the demo, right?
Yeah.
And now I got 60 hours in it. I think it still retains a lot of the fun factor. It has pretty good pacing. I think it's one of the saving graces is that the game keeps throwing new stuff at you consistently, and the gameplay itself is really streamlined. There are some things where it's just not as memorable as Persona 5. Persona 5 kind of hit what do I want to say? Like lightning in a bottle with certain things. Like the music was like a one of a kind thing where everything just clicked, and it's an incredible OST. I wouldn't say the same thing about this one. I think the music is cool, but it's not something I will remember very strongly. Some of the art is a little bit difficult because of its divergence. Yeah, at one point it will be fully hand drawn, and then it goes to the 3D environments. I think actually that's the main issue visually, is that they have gone for more 3D environments in this one compared to Persona. And so Persona, you always had the background JPEGs that were drawn, and that kind of in a way fit a bit better. And then in this one, they do more detail, which is cool. Some look really good, but then there are some where the detail isn't there, or it kind of looks over sharpened and a little bit out of place. So there's some dissonance there with the visuals at times. But yeah, overall, as a game, I find it a lot more enjoyable than Persona for like a 60-hour run so far, because it's always kept fresh. Where Persona, I had big moments of like, oh, okay, like this dungeon feels very similar to another one. And you get some of that, but the actual gameplay and leveling the different archetypes and everything is so diverse at all times that keeps it pretty fresh.
And so you do like it more than Persona. Would you say that, like, is that all because of this, or is it possible that playing 3 or 4 Personas prior is one of the like added reasons?
Well, I actually only played one Persona.
Oh, okay.
That was Persona 5. I dabbled in a couple others, but for a very small amount of time. So really, I think I like the fantasy setting a lot. It worked really well. The writing is pretty good, and the story it's good. Like, it's got some really nice twists to it. Where the story in Persona 5, I felt was much more predictable or readable.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of see
where it was going.
Coming, yeah, I can see where it's going. And like I said, so like the pacing had some arcs that were bangers, and then a couple that were a bit lower. And this one, I felt they did a good job of keeping the ante always going up.
What about the combat? Like, would you say it's
just better in every single respect?
Damn.
It sounds very hyperbolic, but the speed is much better. It's streamlined. You got the archetypes, which I think is a much more interesting system than the personas that you had to catch and everything and fuse together. I like this a lot. The classes are very unique, and it's very rewarding to level out different classes and stuff, and having the lineages for each of them, and then combining them in interesting ways. Because if you combine like 2 of the same or 2 similar ones, you will get like a synergy move that you can do. And those are very unique, very cool to discover. So I would say just the gameplay is just better. When you compare stuff like the endless kind of dungeons you had in Persona 5, where you go to Mementos, it was called, and you would have the, just going deeper into floors, and you'd have the side encounters and stuff. That became very repetitive. And here the dungeons are much more contained, and each dungeon has its own sort of vibe. So it's a lot easier to say, well, I'm going to go knock out this dungeon. It's going to be its own thing. It's a little bit different, and I'm going to get a cool reward from it. And yeah, it just does a better job with showing you what the rewards will be for different actions. I know that if I hang out with this person, I'm getting something. Or, it's very clear with maybe this time you're not getting something if you hang out with this person, or you are, or if you go here, you're getting this. It's all really like easy to parse.
Do you feel like, where was the general amount of growth in the game when it comes to combat and skills? Was it in the first fourth of the game, like the middle of the game? Has it been at the end here where you're suddenly getting powerful skills, or has it been like sort of spread out? Like, what I mean by that is, we talked about this earlier, but you get somebody who says, oh, this game's repetitive. And you're like, well, technically, to be a game, it absolutely has to be, so that you can show experience and growth within the actual action itself. Otherwise, it's not a game. So whenever anybody says it's repetitive without any explanation, it doesn't make any sense without context. In this one, do you feel like you're getting skills as you continue to go and sort of surprises, or is it more expertise by the end?
Yeah, you get surprises, and very often, because you can, I would say it takes a little bit of time, maybe 10 hours to get through the very basic archetypes. And once you have one or two archetypes leveled up to max, what happens is you can play with those, and then you get, when you level up, if you're already max level, you get those like rare candy things that you can use to level up other archetypes. So actually, what's cool is that you don't have to switch to a level 1 archetype and level that up from scratch.
Okay.
Because that would take a lot of time. Actually, the most effective way of doing it is play with your max level archetypes. You get the level up candy things, the consumables that you can pop. And now you get to jump to a completely new archetype and maybe take it up all the way to maybe max level just using the consumables. And now you have a whole other set of skills to play around with and discover. And each dungeon, like I was saying, has its identity. So you will go to the informant and they will tell you, well, listen, it's goblins in this one, and they hate magicians. So if you have a magician in your party, they're going to be angry and hit harder. So, there's always going to be like a theme, and you have to adapt your strategy to that.
And music you definitely didn't like.
I do like it overall. It's much more orchestral. So for me, by definition, that's going to sometimes hit pretty well. And then other times it's going to be a bit too much.
Completely. Yeah.
It's going to miss completely. Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are a few themes that are awesome that I will remember, but a lot of the other ones will be kind of like noise in the background. There's a lot of chanting stuff. There's a lot of like orchestral vocalizing. Yeah, some of it hit, some of it didn't.
Like chorus kind of stuff, like or a choir, maybe a choir or a chorus.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, choir. Yeah, it's much more eclectic. It's not that easy to listen to, especially if you think about listening to it outside of the context of the game. I would say 2 or 3 themes are that level, and then the rest is a bit more serving as a background, decent enough. But
what about the voice acting?
Well, the voice acting is really good. It's really good. Yeah. And I'm playing in English, so I don't know what the Japanese is, but English is awesome, man. They got some great voices in there. I listen to everything. Even 60 hours in, I'm not skipping stuff. It's great. Yeah. I think it's a lot better, actually, than Persona 5. Because Persona 5 had a couple of stinkers, like a couple of characters I just hated how they sounded.
Yeah.
And in this one, I think everyone has a really good voice. Even the tiny fairy that's next to you, let's be honest, they usually tend to have annoying, high-pitched voices. But no,
some characters have punchable voices, man.
Yeah.
Like, like you hear them and you're just, for whatever reason, it could be a caricature, could be, something about them that just, maybe it sounds weird compared to everybody else. But I'm going to read a super chat here that we got. Thank you, as always, for the super chats, folks. It does help the channel, especially because we ain't taking no trips to Disneyland, apparently, like everybody else. Poitroka PLN 25 says, what 2 games would you pick for Game of the Year candidate, which doesn't get mentioned a lot, and why? I'm assuming he means this year, Game of the Year candidate. That's tough. I mean, this year, that's tough. Do you mean, that's interesting, pick for Game of the Year candidate, which doesn't get mentioned? I haven't seen anybody mention Game of the Year yet, so I'm trying to come up with ones that maybe, Yeah, that's difficult because I haven't even seen a list to know if something. So we'll just go with like, is there any Game of the Year? I have a tendency to sort of hold back on any Game of the Year thought processes for me. Again, we're not talking about the fucking voted on thing. We're actually talking about real ones. We're talking about yours and ours, like real gamers. When it comes to Game of the Year discussion for us, man. Let me go look at what I've reviewed this year, see if there's anything that has stuck out. I just never do this early. Do you have any?
You
Well,
know, I
this
have
one,
a few.
this one,
Definitely Metaphor is up
yeah,
there as one of the best ones I've
I think
played.
that's fair. Yeah,
I've really enjoyed Space Marine 2. Pretty much like,
Space Marine
everything,
2 and
like
Black Myth
including
would
the
both be on there
the
for me.
multiplayer
Mm-hmm.
was so fun to do. Um, trying to remember from earlier in the year because
Stellar Blade,
I'm
Dragon's
sure we're
Dogma.
missing.
Um,
Oh, dude, I loved Stellar Blade as well.
yeah,
That was good.
Rebirth.
Oh, wait, was it this year?
Well, it says I'm looking at my reviews. It says Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, February 22nd.
Oh man, and Infinite Wealth too was a
Mm-hmm.
great game.
Yeah,
It's
so
gonna be
looking at my
tough.
list, I would say Super Mario RPG. I wish was in 2024, but it's not because I put that on the list. But I would say for me, Pacific Drive is super high on my list for just a game of the year. It doesn't
Oh,
mean
yeah.
most money. Space Marines on there for sure, and then Black Myth is on there.
Oh,
I would
Lies of
say,
P, someone is saying. I like that too.
yeah, I would say Hellblade 2 would definitely be on there for like experience of the year, but in the same way Astrobot wasn't difficult. Both of those games' difficulty
As a
levels
game,
make me like it's a difficult conversation. I would say graphics of the year. I could certainly see Hellblade being in the
maybe.
discussion.
Yeah.
Plucky Squire was awesome. I would say, unfortunately, this year I've done way less reviews than I normally do because I haven't got code on a lot of stuff and got ghosted. So it was even planning to do the review has been broken because they're like, okay, you have code, and you're like, great, and then they don't give it to you, and you just lost 2 weeks, and you have to
Yeah.
prep for the next big game or the next game you've got scheduled. This year's been a disaster, which is one of the reasons why so much work behind the scenes right now on my channel in particular is to try to see if we can curb that from occurring in the future. But yeah, those are some of the games. Black Myth for sure, Space Marine 2 for sure. And it'd be nice to see a game like that win too, right? Because like there's something about Space Marine that's a gamer's game. Space Marine doesn't go out of its way. It's just like, dude, sup? I'm just showing up, and here we go. Any game, Robert says, would Stalker 2 be eligible for Game of the Year? I don't know how they do their shit, but real gamers, the year ends at the end of the year as normal.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yes, it could if it comes out this year. I was asking people what they played, and there's been a lot of people. What's up, Oregon Fresh? There's been a lot of people who've been playing some pretty different games here. But we'll just read through the start. Chris says, I'm enjoying Veilguard. Dead Captain says Veilguard, and it's way better than I thought based on negativity. Having a blast. Oregon Fresh says, been on a nostalgia kick with SimCity. SBZ says Metal Gear Tactics. Luke says, about to try out System Shock on PS5. Kig says, Veilguard, then Double Exposure, Brothership, and Horizon Remastered. Dylan says, Metaphor was fantastic. JC, replaying Bolt Gun and started Nobody Wants to Die. Dominic Webb says Metal Gear Tactics. Matt says just got Robocop on sale. Looking forward to playing it. On the back wheel, started playing Inscription. Loving it so far. Also ordered my Stalker 2 physical edition.
Did you play that one, Carrick? Inscription?
No.
The card game with the Inception stuff.
Yeah, no. I didn't.
Pretty good.
I didn't play that one. Card game with, wait a minute. Say that again. Card game with what?
It's basically like a card game, but you can stand up from the desk as you're playing and then do stuff in the world. And that interacts with the cards when you play too.
Okay, so the reason why I was a little confused is I was asked to be a card in that game.
The fourth one.
Before it came out, there were a couple, I think it was a couple creators were able to
that's cool.
Get themselves in the game. But that also indicated that I wouldn't be able to review it. But it says here that Inscription was 2021. Why is it being talked about in 2024? Did it get another release?
I think it did get like a console release this year.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Very cool, man. Another good game people can play. Always happy about that.
Black Myth Wukong this year,
No, that's what I said. Yeah, Black Myth is definitely on my list.
Did we say that? Okay.
I did. Yeah, I did. But I did start talking about Space Marine right away. But yeah, that one. I've loved Balatro. Terrence says Sony revealed that Astrobot sold 1.5 million copies. I think that's good. Let me tell you what's good. Metaphor sold 1.5 million in a day.
Woo.
And let me explain to you
damn.
guys something that's sort of frustrating to me. I saw an article, I'm not going to say by who, that stated that because Metaphor sold so well, especially the 1.5 million in the first day, it proves that politics are good in games. And I want to tell you how fucking stupid that is. First of all, politics can be in games. They should be in games. We have games of politics all the time. Beyond Good and Evil had politics. It's never been a thing that anybody would care about to say it can or can't be in games, or even companies like Ubisoft would say our games aren't political. If you kill somebody in a game, it's political in some way. But what stunned me was that an editor didn't spend 3 seconds reading that to explain to that person how fucking science works. They stated that it proved 1.5 million sales day one proved that politics were good in a game, and yet they didn't realize that you would have only engaged in the real political nature of the game halfway through it. So a day one gamer would not even know that was in the game. A day one gamer would be buying because of Atlas' continued excellent delivery of titles. A day one gamer would have bought it due to the trailers. And those trailers were mostly about gameplay. They were not, hey, let's do a 10-minute breakdown on the election going on in Metaphor. And I read it and I was like, how does shit get authorized where somebody doesn't just look and go, oh, you're going to post that? Wait, the gamer wouldn't even know that legitimately you don't understand science and time to say that. Like, what the fuck are we doing? And people are going to think, oh, Carrick doesn't want politics or does want them. It's not, I'm completely fine with them not being in there or being in there. What I don't like is the factual inaccuracy of pretending one thing proves another thing when the original proof, the original starting of it, actually makes no sense at all. Because then the entire discussion, you sound like a bunch of fucking jackasses. Like, it sounds idiotic. And when you're able to look back and go, dude, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. When, by the way, I think you could explain it in a way to where that does make sense. You could probably have a discussion and say politics in games can do wonders or can bring people into a game for its discussion. But instead, they chose to basically start the entire thing and fuck it up from the very start.
It's very odd, too, because it's a very, like, hopeful message of, you know, people from different runs of life coming together and banding together despite their differences and finding common cause and everything. So if anything, I find a very, like, encouraging tale. Yeah, there is some, you know, like, technically, like, election, or it's not really like that, but I can see someone spinning it that way. But I just don't think it's fair to compare it even closely to what happens in the real world with, like, the polarization and everything. It's much more of
SBZ
a
just
unifying.
said Wukong sold 10 million copies in 3 days, so therefore you should have a monkey in your game. That's exactly, by the way, the exact words I said in our chat last night, where I was like, okay, so
conclusion.
The patented conclusions we get, and, you know, YouTuber Gamagramma drama fans who are doing all these drama videos, just drama video after drama video after drama video, read one thing, draw a complete conclusion from it, and say, we're fucked. This company's fucked. Oh my God, there's something else going on. Oh my God. And it's one single thing. And the only thing that a game's success proves is that the game was successful. That is quite literally it. That is all it proves. If a game...
You could point to one thing that was the cause.
Absolutely not. It's so, and especially not early. Over a period of time, you could point to a pattern that increases that possibility of success. But dude, it's so... It's reminding me of, like, why I don't like looking online.
Monkey games and they all succeed, you can start.
Hey, if we got 3 monkey games and they all succeed,
okay, we got to turn.
Wasn't there like a really crappy game that came out a couple years ago with a monkey in it that like had a JPEG for the character and it got absolutely destroyed? It was a super cheap game. Anybody in chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost 100% sure that actually occurred. So there you go. Yeah, dude. It's, man, we're getting, some of this shit is just so crazy that we get, and it makes you like wonder what the thought process for a lot of this stuff is. Like, or is there a thought process? I guess should be the more realistic, thing is like, is there a thought process here for some of the stuff being read or said? That especially the drama kind of stuff is just mind blowing on YouTube right now. Mind blowing. Let's see. Rage bait is out of control.
Is Call of Duty a part of that conversation for you? Like top game? Bops.
Yeah. No. Call of Duty is a good game, highly enjoyable, and probably one of the more enjoyable Call of Duty games I've ever played. But what it does is it does the well-known well.
The blockbuster, like
it does its multiplayer well, but it doesn't exceed its grasp at all. It doesn't grasp anything. It pretty much is like, here's zombies, here's multiplayer, here's your campaign, and it overall delivers them pretty well. But there's nothing there that makes me go, this is a game that deserves to be in that conversation. But I hold that conversation pretty goddamn like sacred, because I just don't give those out much anymore. I don't really believe in them. So the idea that like a game of the year is such an odd discussion, because every person's library is separate to themselves. This is one of the reasons why, if anybody here listening or whatever bitches about the games that are announced or talked about in the Game Awards, it's the people reviewing them that you guys see reviewing them that are choosing that. So you have to have a problem with that too. And they don't. You get this separation of church and state a lot of times. It's like the entire thing is sort of corrupted, not in a personal way, like I'm doing it on a purpose way. It's corrupted by the data set that you're giving. So like if you and I both went forward as game of the year for ACG, we would have to parse both of our libraries down. And therefore, if I had a game that was really good and I wanted it in a library of, let's say, 10 games, I would have to fight you to get it in there, and then you couldn't even vote for it, which is weird, right? Or play it all the way through, which also isn't a requirement and isn't provable. So, yeah, it's just a weird discussion.
It's really hard to
Call of Duty's good, though.
Your journey in a game like Metaphor to another game. Even if you take, like I was saying, Space Marine 2 and Metaphor, I think I even have like a similar amount of hours in both, but it would be so impossible to compare the experiences and say which one is, best.
Yeah. The weird shit that's going on YouTube, I've seen people just completely turning negative because of the clicks, and it's like becoming an issue where we've even had people join our Patreon recently where I'll get a message and somebody will be like, we joined it because it's like, shit's just getting out of control right now. And it does feel like that way, especially about games, where there's like these conclusions are being drawn, like we said about the earlier about the politics thing. And then also the discussion about Game Awards and stuff, and it loses the discussion. It's almost like, oh, well, this one Game of the Year award, the other games don't matter, which is sort of stupid. Rise of Kong, JC, that's the game with the JPEG of the monkey. So I was right. Putting a monkey in your game doesn't mean instant success. Petroika PLN 25 Super Chat. Guys, what's on your wish list? More coming soon games or more games you didn't buy on release? Oh, that's interesting. So if you have anything on a wish list or I want to play it list, are they more future games, or are they actually more games that are you've missed this year?
Future games, and also games that are in early access that I want to play when come out. Windblown is one of them.
Yeah,
you did a video on that looked very good. Awesome. But I want to play the full fat version.
Yeah,
there is
thick fatty version.
Yeah,
junk in the trunk version.
I think Slitherhead released today.
It must have released a couple days ago, because I think Swamp Donkey was playing it on Twitter. I'm pretty sure I saw him post saying he was playing it.
Yeah, I was excited for that one, and then also, of course, Stalker 2. Hoping
mine are future too. Anything in the past is in the past, and I'll play it when I can. But I don't feel drawn to anything in the past. I feel drawn to the future and like getting that experience. And the past stuff is great for sure. But my list is definitely future games, including Stalker, Avowed, Indiana Jones,
Oh
Spider-Man
yeah.
4, whatever the fuck they're gonna call it. Like I like to see those, see how they're coming about. Not so much like looking back. It's just not my style. Thank you for Rise of Kong, by the way. Have you played Metro and Batman VR? I have not. We do have Demon Hunter. He's a new guy in our Discord, and he's got his system set up for VR streaming. I don't know how he did it, but VR streaming has little idiosyncrasies. That guy's nailed it, and it's been fun to watch him playing a bunch of those games. Wasn't as impressed with Metro, either was he. There was a lot of downtime in Metro. You are a doctor. You're not necessarily a war-torn doctor either. So while you get a gun, it takes a while to sort of get going. But yeah. And then Alien's coming out too. Alien's coming out in December, guys. Alien for VR. Yeah. Farming Simulator 25 is on my list too. Yeah, you bet. Farming Simulator 25 is definitely on my list. Definitely on my list.
Do you play the farming sim game?
Yeah, I want to review it, but I can't get them to respond to me. I mean, I got one response, but I was like, I would like to actually cover this. I actually cover the esports stuff. I cover all this. I would like, if you guys have it possible, maybe it's not ready, certainly not saying that there's anything bad planned. I don't think there is. I think it's just literally, they probably haven't seen my name associated with it, even though I'm such a simulator fan. Like, I just like simulator stuff. And then Planet Coaster, I did a review for that and just enjoyed the shit out of it. So I don't think that would be on my game of the year, but it was fun as hell. Yeah. So every single podcast, we're going to try to do a game called Who Dis or What Dis. And what we do is we either show a bunch of character pictures and you try to guess what character it is. I would tell you the game, or we do a bunch of game pictures zoomed in close and you try to decide what game we're showing. It's about 30 seconds with music, accompaniment, and a little bit of Zen moment for you guys to try to figure out what game it is. So we're going to show that right now. Afterwards, you can just throw whatever guess you have in the chat.
It's time for close-ups. Let's go.
I think this one will be somewhat easy. I think. Yeah, I feel like I've got one or two that are so close to spoilers in there. This one was hard because there's a certain thing we can talk about when somebody guesses it accurately that I feel like it's really easy for somebody to be able to be like, boom, I know what this is right away, that kind of stuff. But I'm still doing it. 15 seconds left. Keep guessing. That one might be. Yeah, I feel like I might have made it too easy on people. We'll see. Okay, that's it. So there you go. You got 6 pictures across 30 seconds for you to try to figure out what game that was. J Reaper, man, I suck at these. They're not easy, but I do feel that after a little bit of time, somebody will. Robert Cochran got it right instantly. Damn, he was on that. I could have just let him continue guessing, but he was on that. Okay. Good job, Robert. You got it.
It was Fallout, maybe. That was
no, it's Far Cry 5, and he nailed that, man. He was like, boom, Far Cry 5. I think the arrowhead and the tattoo. The tattoo, I tried to zoom into the point to where I was hoping somebody couldn't tell that was a tattoo, but it's human skin. Human skin looks a certain way. There's like no real way for me to hide that. And I was like, damn, he's probably going to guess it. Yeah, good job. Some people are saying Dead Rising remake. Oh, so you guys are right. I think the one thing I was talking about with Far Cry is that Far Cry has a certain color spectrum and a certain look to almost like a uniform look to its textures. And I noticed that a couple of pictures I had chosen to use were really easy. The moment you saw it and you sort of saw a glove and a background, you'd be like, that's for sure a Far Cry game. Like there's something about it. But yeah, good job, everybody. Damn. You guys were on that. Next time I'll let you guess a little longer and just pretend like somebody didn't get it so we can have some more chats because chats help us in the stream. So after talking about all that kind of stuff, game, I want to go to a little bit of questions from our Discord that we got. The first one is from Knucklehead. I work in a deli and recently someone came up and to order and ask for JoJo's. I had no idea what they were talking about. Turns out they wanted potato wedges. Have you ever heard something from a certain dialect like that and been completely stumped, whether it be a nickname for something or a particular phrasing? I think food's the big one.
Yeah, food is the big one. At work, I heard the phrase to dog food something, and it had me stumped for a while. So it's the idea that Okay. So, okay, I can give you an example of a sentence,
yeah, give me an
right?
example. Yeah.
So let's say my boss tells me that we should, this is a good tool. We should dog food it to our
Make it
own team.
generic across to all projects?
It's more like we should eat our own dog food type thing. So if we made a tool, we should use it.
Damn, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Really?
dog food.
To
Dog
dog
that
food?
shit.
So really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Man, boy, that
Yeah,
one's
like business
that's
like. It
beyond
took me.
me.
A
I've
bit to
never
catch
heard
it.
that. To dog food something. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Dog
I love
food.
learning that kind of stuff, man. I've never ever heard that conversation. Or how a dog returns to its own vomit, is like what I thought you meant originally,
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't think
Different
Yeah.
thought process there.
Ransom says when I first moved to Oregon, I know some people said cutting cookies instead of doing donuts. So cutting cookies is definitely new. We also said do donuts, and I've been here all my life. It was always donuts. Do a donut, not do a cookie. But cookies, weirdly enough, were motorbikes because for the most part, a donut will be bigger than a cookie. And so I believe when we were riding motorbikes, you'd hear somebody say, do a cookie. And when you had somebody in a car, they would say, do a donut. Does that matter anymore? No, not at all. It's completely interspersed, but it is funny that you bring that up. I hear dog fooding a lot, especially if your software isn't great. Oh, well, that's even worse. So your boss was like, let's dog food this. Let's all use it. And you're like, but boss, it's not great. It's terrible. It's terrible. Weirdly enough, not donuts, JoJo's, which is what Knucklehead said, is definitely something Pacific Northwest I hear a lot. We used to call them JoJo's or tater tots were the two. They're not the same food. I'm saying they were
potato
both.
wedges?
So JoJo's are basically potato wedges. Yeah, what somebody would call potato wedges. Tater tots look like a 50-gallon Far Cry barrel shrunk down to this big. And it's basically hash browns, but it looks it's rounded edges, and it's just basically a little miniature. I mean, you could literally put them down and make a diorama of Far Cry and use those as your barrels because they're that rounded edge, and they're delicious. By the way, they are fucking delish. But that's what
I like hash browns, so I could.
Yes, dude, hash browns are so good, and hash browns that are. Anything you can throw up in the air and possibly catch without burning your mouth is awesome.
Do you do like the little sausage rolls as well? They're
sometimes
sort of that size.
Sausage, a lot of if it's store-bought sausage has a particular preservative that gives me a weird headache. I've noticed I can literally track and go, it's in this one. It's just one odd little chemical kind of thing. But I do like sausage when I get a chance. They also
someone will clip that. Yeah, I do like sausage. Yeah.
Okay, now you can clip it.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Oh, man. Anybody not watching will be like, why did it get quiet for a second? Kenshiro says, way back when I smoked, a coworker once wanted to bum a cig, but called it a coffin nail. I have heard that.
Oh.
Also,
wow.
We're not going to say the word or whatever, but, in some places, cigarettes are
the F word.
The F word.
Yeah.
And when you hear that the first time, it's very
old.
It
did shock me the first time.
Yeah. I don't hear it from younger people, certainly, because the world has become closer in its languages. But when I first was reading and stuff, you would read a character would go there and be like, hey, can I bum blah, blah, blah. Oh, you want to? And I'd be like, what?
I don't know if it's a Brit thing. It's maybe a British.
French is what
slang.
I know it from. French.
Is it?
But I mean, there's certainly crossover there. But yeah, it's just weird. There's a lot of weird little terms that'll pop up that you'd be like, what does that mean here? The only thing that surprises me, and you and I've laughed about this, is that slang for games, slang for life, the idea that you'll hear some new, like some random, YouTuber that like lights their house on fire will be like, that's cooked. And you'll realize that they're just repeating something that 30 years ago meant the same shit. And it shows you how revolving. Somebody be like, yeah, man, that's such a brand new thing to say. And it's like, no, dude, unfortunately, we have now...
It's
like a dog, return to our vomit.
Back around.
Yep, we've gone back. Let's see. Seabear says, not to try to get political, but how do you think the proposed U.S. tariffs on tech will impact gaming as well as AI? Do you think AI adoption will slow down the U.S. if costs are increased? I think we pretty much talked about this, but we just have to see how they impact it. If they're incredibly hard, I think people are real. So with the tariff situation, it's actually positive and negative. It's not just randomly we're trying to do something to hurt ourselves. There's all kinds of stuff that have to do with tariffs. So there will be places where things increase as well. But yeah, we'll have to see if those come about, because a lot of politicians say shit before an election and then forget they said it after the election.
But I think it's what you were saying before, that just because there is a tariff that makes it more expensive to maybe source from a particular country, that doesn't mean that now it will be done in the US in your case.
Yeah.
It can go to many other countries first. It might go to Indonesia instead. And
Thailand built some fabs
supply chain.
When I think when TSMC was having issues, I think it was Thailand, because I'm pretty sure Microsoft used a fab there. Yeah, so you get switches. Fatal Baptiste says, "Do you guys like roguelikes or Vampire Survivor style games? Actually, he says, do you roguelikes or Vampire Survivor likes interest you? I think he means, do roguelikes or Vampire Survivor style games interest you? Is it a mood you need to be in, or has it become a game type you like to wind down or vibe to? Do you have any recommendations?" This is more for you, because I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, I like roguelites a lot. I've taken taken a pretty big break, I would say, from them, because I got burnt out. It was a time where everything was roguelite.
Yeah.
A little bit like the Souls, Man, so I do take breaks from them. I will say this year, Balatro blew it off the water.
True,
it's
that.
A fantastic roguelite, and it's packaged around poker and so easy to consume, if that makes sense. It's just very easy to go in there, do a run, and I spent a ton of time in it. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, for me, I would say it takes a lot for me to like any of those games. And off the top of my head, I don't have any recommendations. It sounds like Balatro's one from Johnny. But they're
Windblown, that you played recently, was that roguelike?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that is. Yeah, Windblown. But it's early access, so I feel even uncomfortable suggesting it, because I have no clue what it'll be when it comes out. I mean, I definitely think it's awesome, but I don't know if that continuation will happen, as I play it when it comes out. But yeah, good. It's a good point. Brandon on Twitter says, if you could have a Mount Rushmore of video game characters, whose faces would be on the mountain? I thought this was an amazing question, by the way.
Yeah.
And I want to say how much I appreciate him bringing up this question, because I just feel like that question is fucking phenomenal. So if Mount Rushmore, so let's say we got 4 faces.
Okay.
4 faces that can be on the Mount Rushmore of games. Only 4. It can be anybody involved in games. What would the 4 be? Now, these can be people who make them, people who write music, people who write stories,
or
main characters.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy. I think Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2 has got to be. It will mingle well with any other.
Damn, you think so? I feel like that's so early to put him on the Mount Rushmore.
You need maybe the problem is game. Shepard from Mass Effect, because people, could create their own character.
So I would say I would say Mario.
Oh, okay. I get where you're going with this. It's
and then I would say John Carmack. Because I mean, single-handedly, especially if you follow some of his stuff. But again, that's a tech thing that a lot of people won't understand. But I mean, I mean, when you look at it,
I guess Link from Zelda. Mm-hmm. I'm not the biggest Zelda guy, but you gotta admit, it's
depending on the time frame, Sonic could be on there.
Like how now we already have 2 Nintendo people there.
Yeah. So let's do 1 Mario. Right,
okay,
I think Mario
up there.
Because Mario's in a bunch of games, many of them great. Link's a few less, still great games. But okay,
is it fair to put Nathan from Uncharted as maybe the creator of that adventure?
Man, I don't think Uncharted's near big enough. No. If you put Mario up there and you try to look at equals to Mario, right? Yeah. But I would say a developer, I do think you could make a claim that Ken Levine's a little less so, but you could say like, because Carmack not only helped create all first-person shooters that we see, he also helped DirectX and has in the past fixed a bunch of issues there. He also helped create VR, the entire VR spectrum we're in, and he's considered one of the like programming masterminds. So if you real people, but then the other thing is you're going to start having people suggesting influencers, and it's like, oh god, here we go.
Yeah, I guess if we think about
Doom
like
guy,
recognizable characters,
mm-hmm.
Can we get the Halo guy up there with the helmet
compared to Mario? I mean,
no.
I mean, you could, but he's nothing. Like if you look at like just, I mean, he was there for a while, but Mario hasn't dropped off in quality. I mean, that's what's ridiculous. Is like
that's true.
Halo is pretty much not even. It's not, the relevancy of it is so low. But you could. Oh my God, Craig just said great, or not Craig. Ransom said a Tetris block. Dude,
just a block.
Straight up, let's do that. No. That is perfect. So we now have Mario in a single Tetris block. That's fucking.
And then we get like brilliant. Pikachu up there.
Dude, that's. I mean, a Pikachu is pretty. I feel like that's too much Nintendo, but that is definitely a Mario. Yeah, because Tetris is also them technically at first, at least. So we'll leave it those two. We won't. Let's see. Is there any others? What about Sony? See, Sony's also jumped around. It used to be Crash, which is owned by Activision now. But it's like, I'm trying to think of those games that just, GTA. See, here's the problem with GTA. Every GTA's had a different hero.
Yeah, I was thinking that way about Final Fantasy. You know, like getting a character up there. But the fact is, each Final Fantasy has different characters, so it's hard to... We have some iconic ones, but
Cloud is probably the iconic Final Fantasy character.
I guess,
right?
yeah, but I wouldn't put him to the level of like, what you're.
Tetris block and kick the shit out of Cloud with his little stupid fucking spiky hair. Like, yeah.
And maybe Sonic has been, but again, that's
Sonic's
Nintendo,
pretty close. Well, it's not Nintendo, it's Sega, but they're definitely in. I think. Sonic seems pretty fair. It's just like what I was saying earlier. They've dropped off a little bit, but Sonic is a better answer than some of the others that we've suggested. So currently,
someone said Ryu from Street Fighter. He's been around, forever for sure.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
So we have three.
Ryu, Tetris block, and
Ryu, Tetris block, Mario. And then I am gonna say this has to be a person. This next one, it's got to be. Because if it's not, so you could say the guy who developed the PlayStation. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't know why. No, that's not his name. I can't remember his name. But the developer who created the PlayStation, that could certainly.
Like someone said, Nobuo Uematsu is one of the main composers for Final Fantasy music, who is legendary. Someone say Miyazaki. I get from Software, but. I don't think he's
Miyazaki might
up there.
I mean, I feel like, I mean, he's up there higher than most. I would say him and John Carmack are definitely up there. Because like one created a whole generation and then brought in a whole other generation, and the other one, we'll have to come back to that. But we got three. We've got three. Thank you, everybody. We have three. I appreciate that. That was actually way harder to do than I thought it was going to be, man. Damn. That's tough. That's tough to just come up with those and be like, that's a good question. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, damn. And I like that question because there's a thought process that involves the visual. And so when he said it in that way, I was like, oh, the visual of
it made us
Mount
realize
Rushmore
just
driving
how
by
many
it.
Iconic characters Nintendo has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nintendo's got a bunch, and luckily Sega started early too with Sonic. Like that, but it is hard. It's just like with Master Chief started early with Halo, but then after a while you start to realize who's dropped off. And of those, just being brutally honest, the only one that really hasn't dropped off is Mario. I mean,
standing the test of time there.
Yep. Dude, yeah, Mario is eternally in that age evergreen. We talked about earlier that never gets old. And, even if I maybe don't even resonate with their games, it's just, they're crazy. The other was, Javier says, what's your most memorable game intro of all time? Anybody in chat? Most memorable game intro of all time. All time.
It's a very good one. I have a very specific one that I always think back to.
What's that?
It was God of War, not Ragnarok, but like the first one, I guess, of the new ones. So that one, so you would go to the main menu, you would press like start game, and it would move seamlessly from the menu into the game. And it was an amazing intro section as well, where you meet Kratos.
Yeah.
And everything. Yeah, that was super well.
I would say 2 for me. 1 mimics you perfectly, but it's for Mass Effect, because you were looking out the ship, the music was playing, you hit the button and it zoomed in. And then the second would be Half-Life. I think Half-Life starting is a starting that has basically been so iconic. It is made 8,000 people do the exact same style of entrance. And Half-Life, which is the one where you're riding the little tram, and the idea of selling the game world via just a trip through it to the other end and seeing locations you would go to later in the game was brilliant. It's just that moment of brilliance where you're like, oh my God, I was here. Dead Captain James says Skyrim, without a doubt, the whole world knows that intro. Yeah, I mean, if we talk about most, like, not most popular, but most well-known, I wouldn't say it's my most memorable, but I would agree that it's definitely one of the most, I think
it was so memorable because we all played it many times, so we had, like... we had
mod makers modding that entire section out so that they can make their mods and replay them without having to worry about it. Yeah. Final Fantasy X Blitzball, when the PS4 or PS2 first came out, was crazy as a 10-year-old. The opening of Final Fantasy 6.
And Final Fantasy X was a big jump in graphics. So 9 was like cutscenes without even audio. Like, sorry, they had audio. They didn't have like voice acting or anything. And then suddenly Final Fantasy X is like full-blown 3D cutscenes, like HD, and with like full voice acting and everything. And they had a really amazing Blitzball cutscene with the
feels
water.
Feels good when you get that kind of stuff. When you get that, just that massive change.
It was a huge jump. Yeah, I still remember it.
It's so sexy to see that, man. There's something about it that when you played a game and you've been really happy with it, and then something comes along to make
it was
go,
one of those moments like, whoa, we can now do this. I think it was a new console coming. I don't remember exactly. I think it was the PS2 coming out. And like, wow, you remember the 3D games from PS1 era. They were like rough. And then suddenly, I don't know if it was exactly the PS2 jump or something, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, those are good times, man. There's that moment of magic that you capture in a memorable
we're going to live that again, where we see a game that seems like, whoa, this is just an incredible jump that we didn't think was possible? Or are we at the point where like it's just too much diminishing returns with graphics?
I don't know if it'll just be graphics, but it could be what's going on the screen and the storytelling on the screen. I think a lot of people got caught into the very thing we're excited about, into the tram ride Half-Life entry, into the entry of the Zoom. I think that once you see that, you build on it, you iterate on it. I do firmly believe that there will be something that happens, whether it be the connectivity of the internet and people and all that stuff, and somebody does something on the MMO style front or the social media front that's in a game at the starting, like a Death Stranding 2 or OD, or where he comes, because he definitely, as a storyteller, he's not necessarily always my style, but as here's some weird idea, it's definitely kudos to him. Like, because I don't necessarily resonate with every game doesn't mean I can't say, dude, that's pretty wicked right there. I can absolutely see us seeing that. When it comes to switching graphic styles, no, because once we went 3D and polygon, then you're simply, you're You're just iterating on that thing. So, but yeah, I can see in presentation somebody will come up with something that will be mind blowing, like that we will just go, like how, it's probably something that will be technically possible for years, and someone will have just finally done it, and you
More
will have
like
a bunch of
art-
people say,
art
"Yep," and you'll have a
direction.
bunch of people going, "I cannot believe we didn't think
Yeah.
of whatever this may be," and we'll get it. Next up, how long? This is from Johnny Plays Live. He's a YouTuber. You guys should check him out. We haven't had him on the podcast before, but he's from what I understand, he does. No, yeah, we don't. He doesn't really fit our vibe. But Johnny Plays Live. If you get a chance, YouTube. I hear he does some pretty okay videos on League of Legends and shit. If you get a chance, I'm not a big fan, but people seem to like him here. How long do you have to play a game in order to drop it if you don't like it?
And this came up because I was playing Silent Hill 2, and I put
gotcha.
I put like 20 hours into that game, and I liked a lot of stuff in it, but as a game, I just really wasn't having fun.
Right.
And
right.
it was funny because I was talking to people and they were saying, dude, stick with it, because when you get to the end, it makes it all worth it. And I was thinking to myself, how can that be even possible? Because if you're not enjoying the moment to moment throughout, 20, 25 hours, 30 hours, however long it takes you in the game, how can there be a moment that makes it all worth it? There might be a satisfying closure to it, but
I think you're right if you're truly not enjoying it. If you're truly not enjoying it, no matter how good the end is, what you have is a game with a terrible beginning. That's just the truth of it. You have a game that with a terrible beginning. But if you are somewhat enjoying it, but you're confused, that's different.
Yeah,
that's different. Yeah, but for me, how long do I have to play a game in order to drop it if I don't like it? And it's a personal game of mine. It's a very short amount of time. It's not very long.
What, like a couple hours? You're just...
No, way less. Way less. Yeah.
Even 1 hour, you might...
Yeah, of course, we're talking me as a gamer, you as a gamer. We're not talking about you covering a game or me covering a game. If I'm playing a game...
because if you review, you play
If you're reviewed, you're playing it. And I love playing bad games for review. That way, when I say a game is bad later, I'm using a truly bad game to compare it. You'll see a lot of times where people start picking just the big games to review. And then when they say a game's bad, you're like, well, what does that really mean?
Their baseline becomes
is adjusted.
Excellent.
So that's why once every couple months, I always make sure to find a game that's really odd and be like, okay, let's give this one a chance, and ignore a big game if I have to, or if I can cover them both, that's great too. Probably an hour would be the most I would want to play something. If I doesn't enjoy means it's bad, right? I can usually enjoy something that's at least well put together, even if it doesn't speak to me. But if a game is just I'm not enjoying it, an hour depends on the cost too. In the old days, you'd buy a game for 60. There's no returns. You just were like, okay.
Yeah. Nowadays we're spoiled with, Steam refunds and everything.
Yeah. So if I'm not enjoying it at all, I would say the game is probably going to be bad, and therefore an hour. I think an hour is pretty max for me. And if I get through it and the hour's really bad, you'll definitely, if it was a review, which I said we weren't talking about, but if we were, I would be bringing up that first hour as being dude, that first hour was that. It was a serious mistake on their hands for doing a game with that kind of beginning. What about everybody in chat? How long do you have to play a game before you decide? Ransom says, I recently quit Neo 2 after 37 frustrating hours of hope. Jesus Christ. That's crazy.
Yeah.
37 hours of playing the game and then finally being like, okay, all right, time to put it down.
Yeah, I think, like you said, at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy the moment to moment, really, then no amount of people telling you the game becomes amazing later should make you keep playing it.
Yeah, Jay said some games get good after 20 hours.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I had that with Final Fantasy 14, where I wasn't enjoying the moment to moment, but people told me, dude, you have to play once you get through the base game, which, by the way, was 60 hours just to get through the base game or something. Then it gets good. And I was just I was always like, oh no, the next expansion, people are saying it's amazing, but I'm already not enjoying the current one.
Right.
And I just kept sinking time into it. It's one of the ways I learned to, like, yeah, if you're not enjoying a game, definitely quit it pretty quick. With Silent Hill, it was a bit more mixed because I did like some stuff, so I did stick around for longer. But yeah, I would say, like, you know, don't put yourself through it because people are saying it's amazing, because chances are it won't be amazing for you.
And even worse, chances are it's possible it'll cause you to just, like, for a brief period of time, hate your hobby. You know,
Yeah.
which to me is like, that would be one of the worst things, is to wake up and be like, I hate my hobby. That's why I love games. I love playing even bad games, because you get those experiences as a reviewer, but as a consumer, my time is limited. And there's a completely different thing going on there. Zaxby, what's up, buddy? He says, would you rather get GTA 6 early and it's 100% flawless, but you have to shit every 5 minutes, or wait a year after official release, but you can't watch any gameplay? This is very serious, he says. This is a serious. So we got to, Zaxby's got a serious question here. You get the game early and it's 100% flawless, but every 5 minutes you have to poop. Or you get it a year late, but you cannot watch any of the trailers.
This sounds like one of my mental.
It absolutely does. He's been watching the podcast, man.
I would not take the shitting option. I think that's.
Yeah. I mean, 5 minutes is. Let me set it up. You get to play 5 exact minutes, then you go to the bathroom, then you wipe, you take care, you wash your hands, you sit back down, you have 5 minutes. So the 5 minutes doesn't go extra because the pooping takes 5 minutes. So you have 5 minute blocks for every hour. So you have an hour, 5 minute block, hour, 5 minute block, hour, 5 minute block. I feel like the discomfort level's too high.
It's too high. Your enjoyment of the game is too punctuated by the interruptions as well to actually get in the flow of the game.
Why do you keep changing headsets? You're just absolutely driving me nuts. What's going on? Is one of the headsets messed up?
Sorry, I need to restart the headset.
Oh, okay. Okay. I saw him switching headsets. I was like, what's going on?
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, was a battery going dead?
No, it's just a comfort thing. I wanted to switch to these for a bit, and they were turned off.
Comfort's a big deal if you're in here for 2.5 hours talking to Carrick with ACG. Yep. Adam.
By the way, Carrick, sorry, forgive me. I'm gonna go to the toilet real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
5
minutes. You only got 5 minutes. I'm just joking. Adam says, a couple weeks ago, you mentioned the controller you recommended that was on the level of the Xbox Elite. What was that? And what handhelds would you recommend? Asus, Ally, Steam Deck, thanks in advance. First of all, I did a update on that controller. A little hedgy on it right now is the Vader 4 Pro. I got it somewhat fixed, but the Vader 4 Pro has some incredibly good options, including the ability to adjust the tensions on the sticks. Great options. However, I had some disconnect issues that cropped up a little bit later that appear to be battery related, as in maybe the battery doesn't hold a great charge, and when it gets to a certain point, it loses that connectivity and then pops it back in. And this is something that I've seen with a couple other people. We're talking about it on the Reddit, and it's actually pretty difficult, if not impossible, to fix. What I don't like about them is ignoring the controller for a while, which it is, it's this controller right here. So just so everybody knows, I still do have it. The big problem I have with it is their return policy is dog shit. And basically they wanted me to, weirdly enough, take a video of my screen while the joystick stopped working, which would be a video of the screen with a joystick not working. I couldn't even understand it. And I asked him like 10 times, what are you talking about? Because there's no errors. It's just you're playing a game and it turns the fuck off. Why would you care about what's on the screen? Don't you want to see like the gamepad? And they're like, no, take a picture of the screen. I have no clue what that was. And they refused the return, which indicates to me usually that they have a high number of returns and probably trying to make it difficult. So I would remove that one currently from my suggestion list. Christopher asks, what do you guys think about Mass Effect getting a live action show? So let me tell you this. I tweeted about this. I'd like to know, people in chat, are you guys excited about this? I am excited for a couple reasons. Excited, and obviously, you know, I'm not an idiot. I don't think it's instantly going to be good. But the reason why I bring this up is because we've seen Fallout, right? And we've seen Halo. If they do everything that Halo didn't do, and they don't do what Halo did, and then they also have Fallout and its TV show to sort of follow behind and figure out what works, I think it's much easier to learn from what works than what doesn't. And there wasn't much that worked in the Halo TV show. In fact, I would say the Halo TV show was pretty much an example of most things that don't work. And I think for this one in particular, I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited to see what they do. Especially because I looked into the writers and the production companies, which are a good writer and a good production company. So overall, I'm happy to see that it's being made. The plan has been for a while to make it, but I'd like to know what they think is going to go on in Mass Effect. Is it going to be Shepard? What's it going to be? So we'll just have to see. Overall, you guys know me. Even if, like I said, I didn't love Death Stranding, I'm excited for Death Stranding 2. Same way with the TV show. Just because a bad TV show happened doesn't mean I will magically not want another TV show. Maybe not another Halo.
It's cool to see the tendency of like making more of these. It's going
video game stuff.
You know,
oh, dude, I'm excited. This is why I love it, for the simple fact that I firmly believe a Fallout TV show did help Mass Effect get the green light. That's why, even if I don't like whatever it is, if it does well, it helps the other stuff that I might like. It's why I was really happy when Lord of the Rings did well. While I liked Lord of the Rings, I wasn't like in love with it, especially after 2 and 3, but it meant more fantasy shows and movies would be made. And to me, that's what excites me. Clipper Fan 25 super chat. I feel bad when I don't like games everyone loves, like Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, and Baldur's Gate 3. It makes me feel like I have shit taste in games. Well, let me tell you what, you don't. I think you would have shit taste in games if you liked shit games. You aren't loving really good games. And I personally believe there is a massive difference between those two things. If you are liking shit games that have issues that people are having real issues with, then you have to start looking if you're an anti-consumer kind of thing. If you're like, hey, these people hate this, I'm getting it. The ego kind of stuff. You're just simply saying that, some of these really amazing games you don't like. And I'm personally going to say I don't know a single human in the world that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 really good games they don't like. Right? Like,
yeah, 100% normal. It's by the way, it's like anything else too. There's a bunch of amazing music, and
absolutely,
like you're not gonna like some of it. There's amazing shows that people love and swear by, and then you go and watch it, and you know what? Maybe you're in a different point in your journey where that's not what you're looking for, or it's just not your your pacing.
I think it's much more telling if a person just liked a bunch of shit, like true shit. Like if somebody's like, I loved Gollum, I loved Gene Rain, I loved Alekine's gun, I'd be like, that doesn't seem realistic. It doesn't track. That something there speaks to me it's a rebound against common phenomena or something. But if you're
establishment,
right. But if you're just like, hey man, Breath of the Wild doesn't speak to me, guys. Breath of the Wild didn't speak to me as a Zelda game. It spoke to me as a game like that I liked. Tears of the Kingdom did though. So I'm not a person who loves Breath of the Wild, and I don't feel like that indicates I didn't like Breath of the Wild. But if I was like, man, I really like this mobile game that you pay a bunch of money to buy energy so that you can do 2 things in one day, you guys should be questioning what the fuck I'm doing. You guys be like, dude, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of the FOMO nowadays, where a bunch of people are enjoying, let's say Elden Ring when that came out, or like the DLC, and that makes you feel maybe like you're missing out because you didn't get into it. But the reality is probably there was a reason you didn't get into it. It's okay.
And you're not an AI, so you're going to miss out on something at all times. Fraggle says, my friend called me a nerd after I made him co-op BG3 for 2 hours last night. Well, let me tell you, your friend's a liar. You can't make him co-op 2 hours. He did it. Maybe he just really likes you, but I don't think you're a nerd. I mean, he's a nerd if he was able to co-op for 2 hours. He knew his way around a controller. So therefore, he's a nerd too. See, that's the kind of shit that, man, you can pick apart right away. It's like, dude, you were able to play for 2 hours. You must have some knowledge.
We were even in the same ecosystem.
We were even in the same
Discord
ecosystem.
Like,
yeah. You're full of shit, Bill. Hey, Bill. Fuck you, Bill. You can say Carrick says, fuck you, Bill. Fraggle. You can pass that on. Yeah. He's being a little facetious there. Robert says, have you guys tried out the new update for 6 Days of Fallujah? No. I haven't played that game.
No.
In fact, I think I forgot that thing was a thing. But I will try to get to it. Chris Chant says, there's such a variety of games. As a dad gamer, I don't have so much time. I don't have so much time, so I am more discerning these days. It's fair. Yeah, it's fair. Oregon Fresh says, I got 100 crisp bill on Fem Shepherd. I don't know what that means. It sounds a little bit like maybe he's slipping money into her belt. Hey, you do you, man. You do you. What else do we got? Let's see. I did get some other questions. Jeez, I can't believe, almost forgot. I want to get this last one on Twitter here because everybody was nice enough to give me requests. Ryan, Berminator says, did you get a PS5 Pro? Yes, I did. Any thoughts on it? Not enough yet. Arcstyle says, have you noticed the coil whine and loud noises the PS5 Pro fan and PSU make? It seems noticeably louder. I have not yet. Just literally got it, but I have seen multiple complaints on it. However, I just like to wait a little bit to see how those complaints level out, because I feel like a lot of times we get those kind of situations that pop up and you find out that it's like, the outlier kind of thing. Could be Red Ring of Death. I'm just joking. It's not that bad. Bitlyra says there's a new Sniper Elite being released in a couple months. There is. Crazy. Yep. Oregon Fresh says that the game will have Fem Shepherd.
Oh, that's what he was saying. He's got 100 bill.
That's an interesting thought process that they would go with Shepherd.
With the female version?
I would be surprised if they would. That would be like Fallout having gone with the character in Fallout. I don't know. I find that, especially when Shepherd has so many people split on Fem Shepherd or male Shepherd, I think it would probably do better. Dude, what if this happened, man? What if they just say fuck it and it's twins, a male and female Shepherd in the TV show? You're like, what the hell? It's just a male and female. Get a little bit of both worlds. Yeah, what would be fun is being able to choose which Shepherd. Bitlyrist, I don't know if you saw this, but you may not be too far from what's going on right now. Netflix had their big video game industry stuff going on, and they canceled it, and everybody was quite surprised. Then a couple days later, they announced a massive studio venture in Netflix, including generative AI. Netflix also has all the choose your own adventure interactive TV shows, and they pulled them down the same day other than one. So here's my bet. Somehow they are going to create a TV show that is live updating as you watch it. That is my get. That is my guess. That will be like the guy who did the VR with the generative AI drawing the locations around him. What if they...
Dude.
And here's the thing. You don't have to train that generative AI on everything. You can just train it on some things. And then as you're watching it, you pick a choice and you go. Like Bandersnatch on Netflix currently allows that. It's the only one they left up. So here's the thing. Timing is everything. They disintegrate the old thing. They suddenly magically create a larger studio venture out of this. And then they, at the same time, remove all their interactive titles other than Bandersnatch at the same time. To me, and interactive generative AI and what they've been doing with Bandersnatch fits perfectly for them. I don't know the tech behind it, but we're seeing some crazy shit. I'll watch it. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I like that stuff. You never know. It could be better. Do you feel better now? Do you feel lighter? Are you like, man?
I do actually. Yeah.
Dude, have you ever, I was talking about this earlier. Have you ever had to pee so bad that when you finally do, it hurts like a motherfucker? Like it doesn't feel good. It actually, you're like, I waited too long for this to be taken care of.
No, I've had weird times where I needed to pee so badly, but because I didn't go for so long, I stopped needing to go.
Yeah, right.
And I just spent another hour
Yeah.
later, and then eventually I went and felt terrible. But
So I think what happens with me is like if we're running or we're outside or we're going on a drive, I'll hold it in. And when I get home, I think my body is so accustomed to holding it in that when I do go, I have to go like, I gotta pee. And then it hurts from like holding it in so long. But yeah, no, because we were laughing a couple days ago saying if there was a pill that you could combine an orgasm, a yawn, and peeing after a long ride.
Oh my God.
Dude, straight up, Johnny, you're talking to somebody who would run the world. You know, people think that like the weight loss drugs sell a lot. If I called it yawngasm Elysium and it was a pill and you just took that and you had all that, dude, have you ever had a yawn or a stretch when you get out of bed and you stretch and your entire body's like, oh yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely. We need to workshop that name though, but you know, we'll get there.
All right. Whatever. Herpesen wouldn't work because people think it was spreading herpes, but you could go like, you could go yawngasm.
But is it like all at the same time?
Yes.
Or does it feel like you do one, then the other?
No, because we can do that. I mean, it would be weird if your significant other was there and you're like, oh, peeing and then orgasm. That'd be really weird.
Yeah, and
like
yawning.
There'd be some social. There'd be some social distancing that would happen after that with whatever person you were with. Well, it depends on the timing. Technically, you could, no. This is all at the same time. Ozema piss.
Wow.
Just call it schwing. There you go. All right. What else do we got? Let's look at the news for today because there's been a bunch of shit that's happening, and I'm assuming we've missed something in this small amount of time we've been talking, which has only been 2 hours and 40 minutes. I said small, but that's actually pretty long. Let's see. What do we got? Unity spent $205 million for its restructuring efforts, including mass layoffs. This includes $127 million worth of incremental stock-based compensation. They reported a net loss of $124 million for the third quarter. Man, Unity it's so, you know how you see that superstar that does so well and then they fall apart because drinking and drugs or buying too many houses and they go bankrupt? I feel like Unity, while not anywhere near that level of like popularity, they've really hurt themselves all by themselves. They've like made it so people want to use Unreal Engine without Unreal Engine having done anything. It's just like they've hurt themselves dramatically, man. I don't know. I feel like we're not going to be hearing about about Unity much longer. Feels like it's just one of those things.
Way out.
I do too. And it's unfortunate because even though I don't love it, I would like to see multiple engines, obviously. You know,
I had something I saw as well. Hogwarts Legacy hit 30 million sales.
Yes. 30 million sales.
I love to see it, man. I really enjoyed that game. I actually picked it up this week on Steam because it was on a big sale and I wanted to play it on PC because I've been rereading the Harry Potter books.
Mm-hmm.
Not rereading, reading them for the first time. I've seen the movies, but not the books. So, I've been on a Harry Potter theme. So I picked that up and I think it's a fantastic game. It didn't get as much, Game of the Year attention, but it was still.
Yeah, Game of the Year, you knew that wasn't going to be on the list, right? Like Game of the Year, you were all there's no chance this game's going to be on Game of the Year lists, but it was worth it and should have been. I'm not saying it should have won. I'm saying it should have been on Game of the Year lists. It should have been. It was obviously a political statement. Yeah, it was obviously a political statement. It was just BS. It just shows sort of the way the entire situation is right now. But as a full-on title, whether I liked it or not, I liked it a lot. I don't necessarily know if I would give it Game of the Year, but I certainly would put it on the list. Oregon Fresh says, anybody try the Ant Empire? I haven't, but what I saw looked very cool. I'm excited to actually try that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, like, not phobia, but does it creep you out? Like the bugs blown up to, like, big size?
No.
Okay.
Nope. That doesn't.
Not even spiders or
spiders
anything?
No, spiders, they've got a creep level that's higher than an ant.
Yeah.
Right, but they don't have. I don't need to turn on arachnophobia modes or anything like that. Luckily,
but it does creep me out a little bit.
Yeah.
When you see them, blown up, like they look very big. In fact, when I played Grounded, that did creep me up a bit because you could see your character in comparison to the ants and
Right.
spiders and everything. That did sort of.
Yeah, because you're not negotiating with a fucking insect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no discussion. I was watching Fringe last night, and they have the cordyceps. They have an episode that's sort of like the cordyceps fungi, and they were like, "Oh, can't the way it works is this certain way. It's got almost a primal intelligence." And I was like, "Listen, dudes, just burn it to death. It's just burn it. Just burn it. Some things, you're not talking that thing down." Raw Dog the Food. Is it better than Empire of Overgrowth? I've never heard of that. Grounded spiders scared the shit out of me, JC says, when they skitter. Spiders bug me, and I struggled my first time in Grounded. Okay.
The sound they make is haunting.
Do they make a chittering?
No, dude. It's like a guttural scream type thing, if I remember correctly.
That's actually scary to me. Or creepy.
I remember it being scary because you would hear them through the foliage and not see them, but you would hear them coming your way. And you would know, we got to run for it.
Yeah, we got to run for it. We got to run or we're going to be cocooned up. No, I haven't played that in a long time.
That's a bad way to go too, right? Because they cocoon you. They keep you preserved.
And at some point, they're just going to go by and at some point just suckle a little bit of your juices and then come back later and you're just gonna be screwed. Yeah, spiders, praying mantises, anything that lets you sit around for a while before killing you.
Yep,
that's a rough way to go, right?
That's just rude.
It's rude. It's rude.
Hey,
oh no, I think if you were at a dinner table drinking tea with them, you'd have to talk to them and you'd have to be like, listen,
do me the honor of dispatching me quickly.
You're being rude by consistently holding people hostage in a web and sucking from them slowly. I think we can all agree at this dinner table that you are the rude one here. Insect stuff, shark stuff, they're creepy. They bother me a little bit, but nothing that causes me to go, ooh, Did you also see that Nintendo and Pokemon Company they explained the suing? They're suing them only for $66,000 plus some damages, I guess. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Basically, appears to me a little bit like a touchstone kind of suing, where it's like we know or warning to everybody else.
A little tag.
Yeah,
they're just tagging them a bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Somebody scores a point in a game, and somebody else points and is like, "I see you." That's sort of the way this one is. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it was an odd one when I saw that price.
It's a yellow card or something.
Yeah, it's a yellow card.
From soccer.
Yeah, it's only a 5-yard penalty. It's definitely interesting to see them go out of their way to do all that and then only sue for that. I'm happy, by the way, because regardless of all the other stuff, it's like, not going after them completely is sort of nice. I just don't know the ins and outs of exactly what their problems are with them still, because I haven't read the documents that just leaked, I guess you would say, or just came out. I just haven't got a chance to check them out, but I do. I want to go and look and see exactly what the issue is. If a spider was bigger than you, it would not hesitate to suck your blood out. Yeah. I feel like a spider doesn't have to be bigger than you. I don't think spiders sense size too much. I mean, they do, but not totally. I don't think they give a shit.
But if you had a preposterous size, like 5 times the size of the spider, would they try to suck you up still?
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is I would love to have a spider mount. I was playing Age of Wonders, and Age of Wonders, you can pick spider mounts, and it's pretty fucking wicked, man.
Maybe on paper sounds good, but think about it. They have the fur sort of.
Oh, yeah, some do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could pet it. You could pet your spider, sort of, and occasionally, for no reason, it would just scream, like you said, the sound in Grounded. So you're petting it. You'd be like, "Oh, it's so cute." This hairy tarantula is just so cute. Cleaning around a little goop around its 8 eyes. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I mean,
no.
Who knows, man? Everybody's into different things. What would be the coolest mount? Let's say you're a D&D character, and the DM's like, "Okay, Johnny, you get whatever mount you want."
Animals or
real animals can't be fantasy? A dragon. Real animals. What's the real? And anybody in chat, what's the real like, let's say a game's coming out and they're like, it's about mounted combat. And they're like, you can have a small animal can be bigger and a big animal can be smaller. So if you wanted to have a humpback whale as your mount where it just rolls around and kills everybody, you could, but I don't think that'd be good. But what would be your mount?
Yeah. I think just a giant moose,
Dude, that's not a bad mount.
Yeah.
That's not a bad mount.
You could get hit by a car on that and you will be...
Do you get hit by a car if you're on a moose, or does a car get hit by the moose?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
You've seen those videos.
Going.
Yeah.
You're just going.
When like a fucking Explorer truck is flipped over and the moose is still going, you have to go like, what?
Yeah.
What just
happened?
Hold on. What just happened? I would like, I love that Alapesh said something we said in another game, which is you summon a version of your character and you ride them on the back. That'd be funny. I'd like a polar bear. I'd like a polar bear.
Can you even get your legs around it?
Well, you'd have to, like I said, you could make them small or large, so you'd have to make one that was big enough you could ride, but not too big. But polar bears in general are pretty fast, and a Kodiak could probably be really happy for a second and eat you. Polar bears, you could probably, well, let's say they're a good mount. They're not going to kill you. So yeah, polar bear would be fun. I think that'd be a scary mount, and it'd be like majestic, but also a badass. And when you pulled like out all the stops, and it's at the end of the battle, you're on top of this thing, and it's covered in blood, and its matted wet fur is like all bloody.
And it could fight for you too.
It absolutely could
swing.
But the moose could too. Hats off to the idea of the moose, because
true. It would just body people.
Dude, get off of it, slap its ass, and have that moose. I bet you, if Braveheart really happened, and you put a moose at one end and you slapped its ass, Braveheart, the entire thing would have been over.
2 or 3. Good quality moose.
Good quality stock. Good haunches on them.
Yeah.
Strong meese. Strong. What? I think a group of moose are moose.
Is
mooses. Yeah.
Have a couple coming from an angle, like a wedge.
Yeah. If you had or a pincer movement. If you had 2 good, strong,
it's a wrap.
Good haunched moose here, and then one in the center, dude, I think you win pretty much any battle that isn't involving Abrams battle tanks. I think 3 moose would be, that's a force magnifier right there. That's like the special forces of back then. Yeah, 3 moose. That'd be devastating. Yeah. I'd be more scared of the moose than a bear. I actually would be more, because the way they do, they just don't give a fuck. Like a bear seems to like maul one person. So you could always push Bill, the guy who said the other dude was the nerd for Baldur's Gate. You could be like, hey, Bill, look over there. Bill. Fuck you. And then Bill gets just... The polar bear leaps into the air like a fucking shark on an African waterline. And but the moose, I feel like the moose would enjoy it. Something about a moose seems a little bit like a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like the moose would be...
If you picture someone riding on a horse towards you in combat, that's already scary.
That's already scary.
But if they're riding a moose...
Yeah.
I mean, you're tossing your weapons and running.
I think that's the thing also about a moose is there's something elegant about a horse, but then you see a camel and you're like, they're inelegant. They have a different canter. Yeah. But then you see a moose, which he looks like your dad, who's a little too old to run, but still can.
They got a good center of gravity.
Yeah. But I mean, have you seen them run? They look like Expendables 1 with Stallone when he runs at the end and you're like, ooh. When you see a moose run, you're like, damn, but they're so strong. So like 3 good moose.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 good moose. Dude, that should be a band name.
We solved everything.
Moose. Yeah, we solved everything.
Little sad news that I saw that Kerbal Space Program 2 studio was officially
shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, it was shut down. And that sucks, man. Take Two, doing some of the changes there.
Was that Take Two?
Yeah. Yeah, they sold Private Division.
And, right, they did. They sold Private Division.
That confirmed the closure of a couple of studios. Ollie Ollie World, which was the skateboard.
Yeah, they shut down as well.
Kerbal Space Program 2, which is tragic. The game needed a lot of work, but it could have been amazing.
Yeah, the industry's changed, man.
It's rough out there.
It's rough out there. Augusto says, sup guys and chat. With the news of Mass Effect series, do you have a favorite movie or series based on games? For me, Mortal Kombat from 1995 is still the king. First of all, I would agree.
Good one.
I just think that the original Mortal Kombat with Christopher Lambert and
it's still
and all those is still
unbeatable.
It really was the first, like it hit where it should have, even though I didn't expect it to. So yeah, Mortal Kombat.
But I think the thing with that one is that it's admittedly a B level, like
yeah,
unapologetically goofy.
You know why though? So here's what's interesting. Back then you couldn't have made an A level because the producers are different. So there's no way they would have okayed that. So the only way to get in would be that B level
angle. Yeah, the fun angle. I think that's what I like about now, because we are getting like serious game-based shows, which are great. Like I thought Fallout was awesome. Great
Fallout
pacing,
was incredible. Yeah,
Fallout sweet.
Fallout was great.
Love the cast. Love the girl in it. She did a great job.
Yeah, Fallout. Alpsilish. I always get that name wrong. He says The Expanse. The Expanse was based on a book.
Yeah.
I had forgot about that. Yeah. I won a Mortal Kombat tournament at work, and I'm feeling pretty good, Robert says. Well, you also won the final, or the Far Cry 5. Yes. So technically, your day's over. You might as well today is just success all the way down.
Yeah,
you might as well walk away.
Go to the bank.
Have you ever had one of those days where shit's going right and you're trying as hard as you can to escape the rest of the day?
You just want to quit while you're ahead?
Yes, because you're like two things happen in a good row. I guess it depends on the type of person, but sometimes when you have
waiting
those good
for
things
the other
happen,
shoe to drop.
Yeah. And it depends on the person. That one person stretches and goes, I'm going to go for another thing. The other person is like, I'm going to cash out. I feel good. I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm going to cash out.
It's a good day. Yeah.
What's the best day of your life?
Holy shit.
What's the best day you've ever had, Johnny? Best day of your life. Best day of your whole life. Collapse down to one single day. What is it? And you don't have to go with anything like, I'm not going to go with marriage or whatever, like your life pretty much involving
I think the biggest, what I remember as the happiest day of my life was when I presented my thesis in the master course that I did, because I knew there and then that the judges liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I did, I knew that I was going to pass and I was going to get the degree, the bachelor's and everything, because that opened up for me. At that point, I had already talked with the company I worked at in a job fair. And they told me, hey, we like you, if you do well in the thesis, come in,
cool.
We'll get you, you'll have to interview for it, but we'll get you in there. And that was, I think, the biggest thing, because I thought, dude, okay, until then I was having quite a lot of fear of, maybe it's not going to work out.
Right.
You know how it is, imposter syndrome, like there are so many more intelligent people here than I am, blah, 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 not going to make it, all this type of stuff. And that was the point where I saw like, no, I'm there, I'm in there. And it worked out.
Did you know during that day that it was that good, or did it take like a little bit of like retrospection for you to like look back and go, okay,
I had
that day
a very
was
clear feeling as I was delivering it that it was going well. And when I finished, I thought like, because I knew the teachers at that point, and I felt like, yeah, this landed. It's
damn, that's a good feeling. Yeah. Even then you're saying even then you were like, anybody in chat, feel free to type yours as well. I'd love to hear them. That's a good dude. That's a pretty sweet.
Do you have
day, man.
one day you remember like that, like maybe a pivotal day or something?
I don't, and I'm retrospective. I mean, I look back a lot and like rethink stuff, make plans on things that have succeeded in the past, but I don't. I wish I had something like that, because I love the idea. Was the idea
maybe
of
like a
success.
First video that you did where you like it popped off and you saw like, okay, I can be a reviewer type thing, like a transformational.
No,
it was a bit more gradual, maybe.
Well, and you know me, because I'm like, I am sort of hands off. Like once you make something, it's out there.
put it out there.
It's yeah. So it's like, I may be really happy with it, but then, dude, there have been times where I've been really unhappy with the review. I still feel it did what I wanted to do, but I'm like, this one just, whatever. And then the response was like insanely high. And that's been confusing. I can tell you that much, where I've like been like, dude, do I need to do it? Like, was it the game? Was it the people who respond? Like, what the hell? But no, I blurted out that question without any thought whatsoever about if I had an answer. Cause yeah, I don't, I like your kind of answer because that's a pivotal moment. It was not only like personal growth, but it was like the business, somebody acknowledging already that, yes, that moment was important, but they had already been like, hey, we sort of like what you can do. But if you do well here, I mean, I would say maybe the job I had prior to this one, I applied while in pajamas with my feet up because I didn't care because I had a current job. And I remember nailing that interview to the point to where I had heard people who thought they had paused the phone going like, oh my God, we definitely, like, we for sure need this guy. And I remember being like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, no, I've had great, like tons of great times, like I paid off all my debt one time. I would say that felt good, but I understand the usefulness of debt. So I'm sort of analytical. I'm like, I paid off my debt, but I sort of need some debt because it actually helps you with credit scores. So yeah, no, that's interesting, man. I guess I would say when I see a lot of my stuff has been pulling back when I see success. So like the first novel I had written, when it was okayed to like go to the editors to be published, I just walked away. So like it's a positive, but it's also a negative. It's like, okay, awesome, man, I did that, and I just walked because at that time, I didn't
know you wrote a whole novel.
Well, that's where the name characters like Malanthrax. You see, those are all character names. And what happened was I was in that time. You know how when you're a kid and you're testing what you want to do? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a horsey doctor. I want to, you don't know what the kid wants to be. I was at a time when I was older doing that. So I was testing shit. And I loved that I could jump into stuff. So I jumped into this, did well, jumped over here, did well. But I would walk away a lot. And I would say I have more regret than positivity. Because I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Like, what at the time, where you look back on stuff and you're like, well, that was stupid. Just like you might do the same thing if you make a good music track and you don't put it on SoundCloud. You're like, what the fuck was I? Why? But it was a different time.
I think people don't do that enough, just having a crack at some things, because you never know what's going to become a passion later on. Because I really believe passion is not something that comes in built. I think you sort of develop it over time for stuff. So you have to try a bunch of different things. See what
Oregon Fresh says, getting the Lion King credits was a great day in my life. I know that exact feeling. Lion King was a hard ass game. Matt says, finish recording a record with one of my old bands, ranks high on the list. That would be very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That would be very cool. That kind of stuff. Dude, it's hard because some people don't care at all about like an outside thing. So their personal best day might be a bike ride they took, right? A bike ride that just worked perfect for them or whatever. And then somebody else like you or me, we might have a thing that involves like 10 factors that came together. So it feels like things need to work out perfectly for ours, where somebody else is like, I took a bike ride and I saw sunset. Like, damn. They're the poets of the world, right? Kenshiro says, there are a lot of good days, hard to decide on one. Buying my house 3 years ago. Oh yeah, buying a house, man.
That's a good one. Yeah, I
feel pretty good
about that.
I hadn't either.
That feels good.
Yeah. But here's the analytical part, Johnny. The very moment I realized I owned a house was the very moment I realized I unfortunately owned a house. And there was no landlord to say, fix my shit. Every single thing was on me. And so there's this moment of like, I can knock down a wall.
For everything.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yep. It's just like if somebody's proud of their game, they know at some point they got to push a button and make it active on Steam. Right. So there's that. Everything in life where it's like that really positive, but oh shit, there's this other thing. But I'm always looking for the next thing too, which is always fun to do, and certainly you do too. I mean, that's one of the more enjoyable things. It's like looking at the next big thing.
Yeah,
I would say also going to my first. Weirdly enough, I'd never been on a water ride. The ones
like
where you
a
slide.
Water park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I remember I slid so much that I got out. I think I've told you, but my grandma was like, something's wrong with your shorts. I was wearing like swim trunks, and I'd slid so much that they were like worn out already. The pocket was ripped because I was sprinting. This is me, by the way. This is like classic. Like I don't even remember running up steps because I was so fast. I would sprint up the steps as much as possible and then slide down, sprint up steps. And I did it for hours at a campground. And I remember like that was one of those days where you're shrunken from chlorine in the water and you're wrinkly. Oh, yeah. And my grandma was like, dude, you need to get out. Like you're going to burn from the chlorine or something. I was just like, dude, you just have no clue. A water park to me, I had never seen before. And it was just such an amazing time. It was like something
it's sort of magical, isn't it?
Yeah, I did
with the water. Yeah,
with the water, and it wasn't cold because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so everywhere you went was freezing cold. So it took like 10 minutes to get acclimatized to the water. A lot of people saying moved into a house with my girlfriend last year. Jet Black Ninja says, "Congratulations, sir."
Awesome.
Terrence says, "My wife worked in special effects, and her name is in the credits of Resident Evil." Damn.
Oh wow, nice.
Damn. Robert says, "Surviving spinal meningitis was my #1 best day ever." Yes, indeed. That's good. Good for you. Final debt payment, financial freedom, finish recording the record. Damn. Those are all really cool. What else do we got before we wrap it up? Do we have anything else? Thank you again, everybody, for the questions and the super chats. Those do help the channel big time. Another thing, if you're not subscribed, could you please subscribe? It does help. And also, these will go live on iTunes and Spotify. So if you get a chance, comment, because it absolutely, even a couple comments help it go up. And the more it goes up, the more people on iTunes and Spotify see it. And I can't express enough, if you're big on a YouTube channel and you have a separate podcast, it means nothing. You still have to grow that. And the same thing goes for if you're big on YouTube on a channel, it doesn't mean Spotify and iTunes grow, but you need them all to do well. So I'd appreciate that.
And you know what? Drop your favorite emote in the comments. It helps us.
Your favorite emote. If you don't have
anything to say, just drop a bunch of.
Actually, we can end it with a question. Let's so you can drop an emote in the comments, either in Spotify, iTunes, or here, or we'll give you one last question as we go on. And it's got to be. Let's see here. Could say, has a game ever affected your life? It's pretty broad, because somebody could just say I played it too much and my girlfriend left me, which by the way would be a real thing.
I got kicked out of university.
I didn't pay my rent because I was playing WoW, and apparently you're supposed to pay your rent. Let's see, is there a question that we could ask? We'll go with that. Yeah, we'll just go with that. Has gaming ever directly impacted outside life for you? And in what way? Could be good, could be bad, could be something like we just said where it's fairly generic. But you go with those answers, whatever you guys want to give as answers. I want to say thanks again. Johnny, where are you streaming?
I'm currently on a streaming hiatus, but I'm making daily videos.
That's what I meant. I apologize.
On my YouTube channel. Just called Johnny Plays.
Johnny
I'll write
Plays.
it down in chat. No H, no Johnny without an H.
Yep.
JONNY Plays.
The correct spelling of Johnny.
That's it. Daily.
Yep, the only correct intelligent spelling of Johnny ever. That's the way you spell it. Never with an H.
Yeah.
He's in there. Johnny Plays Lives.
The best videos to sleep to, apparently. I've been told.
Johnny Plays Live. The best videos. Dude, you need that as your tagline. Johnny Plays Live. The best videos you've ever fallen asleep to. That'd be a positive tagline. Do you have one coming up here soon? Specifically, are you doing another 5-hour or?
For now, I'm doing dailies, and I'll try every month. There will be a big 4-hour video, but most are daily.
All right, and you'll see some. It looks like I was in here. There's a preview or two coming up, as well as a review. Still working on Veilguard, but be aware, real quick. Planned for Veilguard. Veilguard plan did not go through, but the Veilguard plan that didn't go through was during a timeline I had set it aside. Now that didn't go through and I got Veilguard on my own, there's no time because I'm doing other stuff. But I am trying to play through Veilguard so I can give an idea of what I think of it. It is just... I can't stop the world for one game, especially when it already stopped a full week when I thought I was going to get it. Anyway, that's it for us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Hope you had a good Friday. Hope we made you laugh a little bit or enjoy yourselves. Thank you, as always, Johnny. for showing up for the podcast. It's a pleasure, as always. Peace out, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week. Go back into live streaming. Might take me a second to wrap this one up. There we go. And there we go. Excellent.
Bam.
Robert says,